Can we please take our seats? Okay. Respected colleagues, I want to sincerely apologize for coming late, mainly because of communication gap. I apologize on behalf of the Speaker, members of Bureau, and management. Thank you. Honourable members, good morning. Sitting resumes. I invite you, while remaining standing, to observe, as tradition recommends, a minute of prayer, meditation, or reverence according to our respective belief and religious convictions. Thank you. Amen. Thank you, honorable members. The Secretary General, please proceed with the roll call of parliamentarians. Oh, that's what I take.
Okay. Right Honorable Tini Sidi Mohamed, Honorable Wase Ahmed Idris, Honorable Sani Malam Shaibu Bukari, Honorable Ibrahima Memunatu, Honorable Pinto Ajasatu Kamara, Honorable Abiante Awaji Inombek Dagomi, Honorable Abdulaziz Ayaba Musa, Honorable Adamu Abdu, Honorable Adeimi Smart, Honorable Adu Johnson Kwaku, Honorable Afiyo Markins Alexander Kwamena, Honorable Agbandao Kunonau, Honorable Ayi Samson, Honorable Aka Hervé, Honorable Akwashiki Godia, Honorable Alimikena Francis Asekame, Honorable Alipui Senanu Koku, Honorable Ameya Chereme Kwesi, Honorable Asin Eme, Honorable Auyo Ibrahim Usman, Honorable Ayamba Ladi Ayi, Honorable Ayariga Mahama, Honorable Bako Nasiru Arifari, Honorable Balarabe Abdullahi Salame, Honorable Balogun Adebayo, Honorable Bangura Mohamed, Honorable Baro Kebake, Honorable Bezra Emmanuel Kwesi, Honorable Bolovi Patrick Kodjovi Senam, Honorable Borofis Robert Ajayi, Honorable Bukar Lamino Fugu, Honorable Boacha Emmanuel, Honorable Khalifa Seidi, Honorable Chuba Ikwea Zulinda, Honorable Kulubali Traore Ajaratu, Honorable Dabo Alaji S, Honorable Daoudou Bashir, Honorable Diaz Armando Correa, Honorable Jibo Ali Amadou, Honorable Ego Emmanuel Ogene, Honorable Ezenwa Francis Onyuwechi, Honorable Fanny Musokura Chantal, Honorable Fernandez Gabriela Alfredo, Honorable Gabasawa Nasiru Abdua, Honorable Bocho Marcel Mone, Honorable Gobir Ibrahim, Honorable Azume Hippolyte, Honorable Idiango Usman, Honorable Isa Murtala, Honorable Isa Salifu, Honorable Isa Mayaki Ramnatu, Honorable Diallo Samba, Honorable Kaipe Jonathan, Honorable Kamba Abdullahi Umar, Honorable Kolawole Taiwo Misibo, Honorable Kone Nyanga Jomo, Honorable Kumwe Kona Rene, Honorable Lamina Sa Emerson, Honorable Lopez Manuela Nascimento, Honorable Masakwa Clarence Kortu Momolu, Honorable Medigan Fagla Sidami Romarik, Honorable Michelia Haruna, Honorable Mustafa Olalekan Ramoni, Honorable Ndoye Suleiman, Honorable Ndume Mohamed Ali, Honorable Ndiaye Fatmata, Honorable Odebi Tolulope Akinremi, Honorable Ogwa Joseph Obina, Honorable Okejev Emmanuel Yiza, Honorable Olujimi Biodun Christine, Honorable Honor Sandy, Honorable Pereira Diaz Orlando, Honorable Rosa Rosa Lopez, Honorable Rosario de Brito Nelson, Honorable Sahabi Alaji Yao, Honorable Saidu Alkali, Honorable Sako Mamadou, Honorable Salam Bamidele, Honorable Saleh Gabriel Zok, Honorable Saleh Ibrahima Baba, Honorable Sama Shaka Musa, Honorable Sankara Abdullahi Danladi, Honorable Santos Tavares Carlos Alberto Dos, Honorable Sar Urai, Honorable Cisse Veronica Kadi, Honorable Sayo Aja Fata, Honorable Snow Jr. Edwin Melvin, Honorable Suarez da Costa Isa Filomena Pereira, Honorable Seklingbe Senu, Honorable Sila Adama, Honorable Taiwo Kolawole, Taiwo Uliyemi Adewale, Honorable Tunkara Bileji, Honorable Omeoji Michael, Honorable Vilan Abdullahi, Honorable Yusufu Bida Abdurrahmani Nume, Honorable Zargo Stephen G.H. Mr. Speaker, the list is exhausted.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Honorable members, by virtue of Article 71, Paragraph 2 of our Rules of Procedure, Parliament has always the requisite numbers to deliberate and settle its agenda. Honorable members, the agenda of the plenary sitting of today, Wednesday, 6th December 2023, is devoted to the presentation of country reports of Guinea Bissau and Benin Republic. Honorable colleagues, before I give the floor to the honorable delegations, I would like to remind you of the provisions of Article 104 of our Rules of Procedure, and I quote,
Benin and Guinea Bissau, but the agenda, the other paper here says Niger, and we've not seen the report for Niger. And before we proceed, we also need an explanation. We were informed yesterday that Guinea Bissau had dissolved their parliament, and I made mention to the speaker that he said he was only going to mention, and I said then it was best that we only saw it in the news, because if something is mentioned and not discussed in parliament, then it might as well not be mentioned. So I think it needs to be discussed, and we also need to know why Niger is on the other paper, but we've not seen a report, and you've also not mentioned that they are going to read their report today. Thank you.
well, Honorable Fatu, I told you you're not supposed to arrest me at this level, but to wait until when we get to the position of presentation as a parliamentary procedure. But for now, it's to allow first the introduction of the subject matter, and until the subject matter is introduced, those other issues you raise can now be attended to. Thank you. I repeat again, the agenda of the plenary sitting of today's Wednesday, 6th December 2023, is devoted to the presentation of country report of Guinea Bissau and Benin Republic. Honorable colleagues, before I give the floor to the national delegation, I would like to remind you that the provision of Article 104 of our Rules of Procedure, and I quote, at the beginning of each parliamentary session, each national delegation shall present a country report on the state of the implementation of community texts and programs, including human rights situation, the state of democracy and good governance in their country. The country reports are debated in plenary in line with the modalities defined by the Bureau. That is said, Niger Republic has still not submitted its country report to the General Secretariat. I therefore propose that Plenary take note of the fact that it is impossible to examine this country's report, given that we are on the last day of our work program devoted to the consideration of the country report. From this observation, I now give the floor to the delegation of Guinea Bissau and Benin Republic to present their respective reports to the plenary. The floor is now open for the Guinea Bissau delegation to present its country report. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, point of order. Mr. Speaker, point of order, sir.
Allow my sister to.
Point of order.
Okay, I thought yours too was a point of order. It takes the mention. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. I wish to refer us to Rule 81. Rule 81 of our rules of procedure. And if I have your permission, Mr. Speaker, I will read.
Go ahead and read.
81.1. A representative may be allowed to speak to draw the attention of the speaker to any failure to respect Parliament's rules of procedure. The representative shall first specify to which rule he is referring to. That I have just done. Mr. Speaker, go with me to Rule 60. Rule 60. Rule 60 talks about order paper. I listened to you the other day at plenary when you made reference to the national parliament from where you are coming from, that it does have provisions for members to even raise matters of urgent national importance. It also makes provisions for members to present explanations, and it guarantees that their privileges can also be respected if they are breached, coming under point of order. Mr. Speaker, we have always sat in plenary in this parliament with order papers that do not conform with the specifications as outlined in Rule 60. I want the administrative head to probably give us a reason, if there is any, why our order papers are not in conformity with the requirements as spelled out in Rule 60. He will have the rules of procedure. He can read them for us. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That's my point of order.
Thank you very much, my brother. But you do know that when you raise a point of order, it's for the presiding officer to give you an answer where he's unable. Maybe he call the appropriate person to help. I do not think that you want to engage directly the members of management. If it is specific and specified in our rules of procedure, maybe due to norms, which you know that Parliament is guided by two documents, rules and norms. But the rules takes precedence over any other thing. All I will urge the SG is to confirm the provision because you are the custodian of that rule. If it is so, we should amend our way of putting the order up, except otherwise. Thank you. SG, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the floor.
Yes, we should address this matter first until it's settled before we can proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour, honorables députés. Par rapport à l'interpellation de l'honorable Abianté, par rapport à l'article 60 de votre règlement relatif à la conduite des affaires du jour, je pense que jusqu'à présent, nous avons toujours respecté scrupuleusement d'abord le programme de travail qui est adopté par la plénière et qui donne pour chaque jour de plénière l'ordre du jour. Maintenant, en établissant l'ordre de séance, nous nous référons à la séance précédente qui donne donc la conduite des affaires du jour pour la prochaine plénière. Et c'est ainsi que par rapport à notre ordre du jour, il nous restait seulement 3 pays à faire passer en ce qui concerne les rapports pays. Il se trouve que jusqu'à présent, nous n'avons pas reçu d'instructions sur le Niger. C'est pourquoi nous l'avons maintenu par rapport au rapport. Mais Tant que nous n'avons pas reçu d'instruction pour enlever le Niger, nous sommes obligés de le mettre parce que la délégation est présente. La délégation est présente. La seule chose que nous avons, c'est que nous n'avons pas reçu le rapport. Voilà, donc je pense que, mais jusqu'à présent, nous avons toujours suivi scrupuleusement ce qui est adopté par la plénière et donc ce qui est également annoncé.
Mr. Speaker, sir, he has not answered the question. Let me help him to read it, sir. Order 60, sir. 1. The Secretary General shall prepare the order paper setting out the sequence of proceedings and order of business for every sitting. The order shall be circulated amongst the before every sitting. And the order goes thus, sir. A, opening opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. 2, roll call of members. C, taking of oath. D, statement by the chairman. E, election of speaker where necessary. Address or message by chairman of community. Ceremonial speeches. Correction of votes and proceedings. And we know that we have never even had votes and proceedings here. So it means that they have always kept this item in our order paper. Statement by chairman of council where applicable. Questions of officials of the community. Complaints of contempt of parliament. Presentation of petitions. Meaning that this parliament will have every opportunity to present petitions at every sitting. Presentation of papers. Presentation of referrals. Matters of public importance. Motions and resolutions. Mr. Speaker, this is the order as set forth in our rules of proceeding, and it has never been complied with at any point in time. I only call the attention of this House to enable us get back to do things rightly as a parliament. It's not that it's not provided for. It's provided for in our rules of procedure. It's just for us to go back and do the right thing. If we have never done it right in the past, there is always opportunity to get it right, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. I think your point of order is in order, and all of us that are parliamentarians are aware that if there is a set standard for you, whether the items is going to be introduced or not, it is normally supposed to be listed. The only thing you do in the guidance as you come, you skip the one that is not tenable for that moment. And I think we can avail from our various parliament copies of such how it is done order paper. So point of order sustained, and we expect the Secretariat to comply with it. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, in my country, we have what we call a bantaba. It is where people meet, talk, and go, and do nothing about it. And we don't want this parliament to turn into one. I think if order paper is here, Niger should present. They've not sent their report. It means that they are not. Are they telling us that there's nothing happening in the country? We have a deputy speaker sitting right there, yet they have not sent their report. And we just turning a blind eye, ignoring. I wasn't here at the opening, but I was told that the president of the ECOWAS Commission is still claiming that it is an attempted coup. And we all know it is not an attempted coup. It is a coup d'etat. What is good for the goose must be good for the gander. We have suspended Guinea. We have suspended Guinea. We have suspended Mali. We have suspended Burkina. Why do we still have the Niger people? And more so, a deputy speaker sitting, yet they still cannot present their report, and we are still turning a blind eye. It means that we are just a bantaba, coming here, chatting, and going back, doing nothing. We should know. We should be told about the situation. I think it is more so that they present a report. I think we should give them an ultimatum. Either they present their report and tell us the situation, or they leave. I think that is what we should be doing.
Well, I want to beg of you, let us be a little bit concerned, with situations. Country reports are done in conjunction between the parliament, you are very much aware, and the government. In this particular situation, the military have said they have sacked all democratic presence. And you know pretty well, if they're going to present correct status, the country report of the respected colleagues, sorry for the interruption. I guess my brothers from the PDP in Nigeria are the one interfering with the power.
Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président.
Yes, sir.
Monsieur.
I thought we were addressing an issue that has been raised. So if you be kind, translation? Hello? No translation. That is? Well, okay now. Thank you. So, like I was saying, this is a parliament that has been suspended. They cannot do their work without the cooperation of the executive. And whatever data and information they will submit, the parliament does not have its own separate data bank. Let alone to say, okay, we are going to now submit this information from our own distance. And that's why it's difficult for them, and we should understand with them, to present that country report. But however, I thought in my own ruling, I would say it is right to raise the observation, and it is also, it would have been more appropriate for them to write the constraint of why they cannot present this thing, which is the normal procedure. And I expect the leader of the delegation to do that. This should be the correct thing, so that we all move in the right direction and in one unison. I want to beg for that understanding. Two, about the suspension of Guinea that was raised. You see, if you want to talk about democracy, there are constitutional ways of doing things. If I were the speaker that was presiding the other time, I will not come to announce that the president have dissolved. Does the president have the political right to dissolve a parliament when going through the rules and regulations, the constitution of the country? If he doesn't have the right, how now will he dissolve? And then we'll come here and backing up. And that's why our parliamentarians will remain. For me, we have to respect our various laws and constitution of our various countries. Until we do that, we cannot have a true democracy. And we are now speaking against a military coup and then affirming a democratic coup. I think that should not be sustained in this parliament. I want to beg, and I want to believe that the speaker just conveyed, but he does not mean. If he meant to implement, he would have done that. And I want to, I go in line with him, allow the Guinea parliamentarians, they are here to present their country report when their time comes in, for them to do that, so that we'll have flow. And then other external politics, Parliament should not be encouraged to delve into it. Thank you very much.
Speaker. Yes. Speaker, thank you very much for.
When he comes to that point, they will do that when we get to that point.
Speaker, thank you very much. Speaker, is here. Here. Is here. Okay.
Let's go in order if we're interested, so that we do the conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Guinea. Sorry, SG, excuse me. SG registered the name so that we'll be fair to everybody.
Yes. You gave
Who
me
want to intervene?
Me. You gave me the floor already.
Okay.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, to save time, I'm giving a solution.
They are taking the list, please.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the floor. To save time, I think procedurally in other parliaments, once this is brought to your knowledge or understand that they will not be able to present their country report, you could have varied or amended the order paper through a motion from you, and then the parliament will adopt it. So I want to beg indulgence that you present Benin and Guinea Bissau on the order paper to remove. You can, as speaker, I'm telling you, in some jurisdiction, the speaker can always amend the order paper through a motion to save time. Thank you.
You see, don't donate their powers. If you donate their powers and tomorrow is used wrongly, it's the same parliamentarians that will come back to complain. Whatever is agreed and the template is what should be followed.
No,
sorry, sir. Amending is not the right of the speaker. I'm being honest. I was a presiding officer, and I know that the order paper is prepared by a defense committee, rules and business. It's not the prerequisite side of the speaker to do that. So if you donate now this one to say, okay, speaker can amend. Tomorrow he can decide, I delete ABC. And you are the one who mentioned here on the floor.
I said on the approval of member of parliament, anytime a business of parliament is on the paper, parliamentarian, if they feel that they cannot exhaust
I think that's why the speaker brought, I said that's why the speaker brought to the attention in the opening remark to say Niger are unable to do, and he's giving you that notice.
Good. So
but I'm saying, in taking that notice, it is only fair to have a record, and that record should come from Niger to say these are our constraints, not for us to speak for them, because we have given them the opportunity to remain with us, and we want them to remain with us. But it's for them not to say the constraint, not for us, for the chair, to give the constraint. That is not correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Frankly speaking, when I heard that Niger, the MPs are going to stay, I was very happy. Because when a group of people overthrow a democratically elected government, the next day we sack their MPs, I think we are encouraging them to continue. For me, I'm very happy that Niger is here. Then about the report. The report is symbolic, Mr. Speaker. Some of us will be following the news in the media, but want to hear from the horse's mouth. The Nigerian report does not have to have the same format like other countries. They may not have to produce figures, but want to know the political situation from the horse's mouth. So I want to appeal that we have one member from Niger addressing us, giving us the situation in Niger from the horse's mouth. It's still a report. Thank you very much.
Very much. Except if there are other developments in terms of improvement on what he has said, I think the last point should be sustained to allow Niger to put up a report for us, to give us, even if it's one line, about the state of their country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Myself and a colleague from Sierra Leone, we are almost speaking from the same sheets. Mr. Speaker, I still recall of the very moment we are taking this oath in Winneba. In the ECOWAS oath of office, we understand that it is there in the clause that on my honor that I will faithfully serve the interests of the peoples. Niger happens to be one of the peoples and want to serve their interests. I feel the pain of what's happened in Niger. It's only because of the grace of God, the same thing would have befallen us. A week ago, I'm talking of Sierra Leone. A week ago, the same thing would have befallen us had it not been the intervention of God Almighty and for the faithfulness of loyal forces. So in any case, because I feel with Niger, it is high time we, in this community parliament, stand with them, no matter what. The quotation of Martin Niemöller, at one time, an opposition to the Nazi's regime, once said in his book, that first they came to the communists. I did not speak up because I'm not a communist. And they came to the Jew. I also did not speak up because I'm not a Jew. And they also came to the trade unionists. I did not speak up because I'm not a trade unionist. They came to the Catholic. I did not speak because I'm a Protestant. He said, but when they came to me, there was no one left to speak for me. This is the same case with Niger, like in Sierra Leone a week ago. It is hard time, members of this community parliament, no matter what, we stand with them. And I still want to encourage the parliament to keep members of parliament in Nigeria so that it will pain more the military regime. They'll think on constitutionally changing regimes will make them succeed. I stand with Niger, and I urge the community to continue standing with Nigeria. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Colleagues?
Speaker, can these members be corrected? Nobody is here not standing with anybody.
There's no point to correct anybody.
We are all human and
correct
we are
anybody.
against coup d'etat. But what I'm saying, I don't care who stands with who. We are all human beings.
But
and we
my
stand for the
sister,
right
you
thing.
know in rules of debate, excuse me please, so that we are orderly. In rules of debate, when you contribute and you feel necessary to reply, that's a way you also should behave, so that we do not make the place rancorous. Please, I want to beg. It's a very big departure from parliamentary practice. If you want to speak, you raise your hand and you will be registered. We'll get back to you. Please, I want to beg for that understanding. I want to go through strictly by the list that have been made. Honorable Takara have contributed, Honorable Fagu. If you want to, you will still want to? Nobody have done that. You have done that. Allow other ones to contribute, please. Honorable Alipiu.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Point of order. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je constate que nous sommes en train de passer l'essentiel de la matinée finale. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Is it okay? They are not following, right? Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je constate que finalement, nous sommes en train de passer l'essentiel de la matinée à parler d'un problème que nous ne pourrons pas régler. Aucun d'entre nous ici n'est favorable au coup d'État dans les différents pays. Nous avons des principes, nous avons des règles à suivre lorsqu'il y a ces situations dans nos différents pays. Mais la question que j'aimerais...
The question that I would like us to ask, all of us this morning, yes, we do have principles, but are we going to die because of those principles? And whenever there is a problem, we meet in a group of 2 or 3 because of those principles? They are legal situations and they are factual situations. These are facts. This is not something that we wanted to happen. So we should start thinking about ourselves as MPs. What can we do to avoid having such situations? What can we do to support the ECOWAS Commission so that we don't find ourselves in solutions where people decide all of a sudden to impose their rules to others? We are not to, we should not be asking why someone is on the high table and what are we going to get out of that? I think that we are now building a community, and I think that we need, now that we have 4 or 5 states out of 15 which are facing difficulties, let us start thinking of ways to get out of that situation instead of insisting on principles which are beginning to have difficulties to be implemented because of the reality that we are facing. I think that when a country cannot submit its report, there are cases where members of the delegation are not present. There are all sorts of possibilities. So let us, let us crave each other's indulgence. We can spend the whole morning discussing. Are we going to reach our objectives, or will we have resolved something by quarreling here? This is the small contribution that I wanted to make. I appeal for us to be moderate in the way we talk and for us to be realistic so that we can continue our deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Alipiu. And I will beg colleagues to toe his line so that we quickly resolve and go back to our own main agenda. Honorable Pinto Kamara.
Muito obrigado, Presidente. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, I would like, on the question raised by the MP, my colleague Fatoumata Ndiaye, as I didn't want to answer because I think that Guinea Bissau was to present its report, and after the presentation of that report, there could be questions. But to raise it before, we cannot answer. We are an ECOWAS community. We are members of this ECOWAS parliament, and each country has its own constitution. In Guinea-Bissau, we have a constitution. We also have a People's National Assembly. In Guinea-Bissau, the parliament can be dissolved, can be there is an article for that. There is an article governing that. And the parliament, only the plenary, the committees function, only the plenary, the committees function, the committees work. they work without the plenary, and this is something that I need to explain to colleagues. We are going to submit our reports. If we submit our report, any question can be raised and we'll answer. But every country has its own constitution, and every country has its own way of conducting matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Colleagues, can we make progress? Because if we continuously debate,
Assois-toi, Fougou, assois-toi. Assois-toi. Assois-toi, s'il te plaît. Fougou, assois-toi, s'il te plaît.
if you want us to continue the debate, we'll continue with the debate. As for me, I want to, excuse me, I want to guide. And that's the work of presiding officer, is to guide the sitting. Nothing more than that. What is stipulating the agenda is different. Another matter has been introduced. We cannot continue debate the entirety of what, there must be a ruling. But, well, if it is the desire of the House, let's continue. Honorable,
Motion.
yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I will allow all those who have raised their decision to talk about it,
Chair,
if that's the wish of the House. Honorable Khalifa.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is a point of order so that we continue, we end this debate. There are two countries which have reports that are translated. So I think that those countries, that is Guinea Bissau and Benin or Guinea Bissau, should present their reports. And when we reach the point where we are to discuss Niger will give us information on the situation in Niger. But there is no, it is not presentation of the report. They would just inform us on what is happening in Niger. I think that that's so. So I think that we should really end this debate. Please, thank you very much.
Well, Sani Bukari.
Speaker, motion, please. Speaker.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as the first Deputy Speaker said, I really did not want to speak in this debate. But for me, well, this situation is very clear. You know that indeed it is the democratic play, the democratic situation. If we are here in a parliament, it is because we want to have some freedom. For me, in my own life, I have experienced two dissolved assemblies and 4 coups. I witnessed that. Now, for Guinea-Bissau, they are here. They are being part of the deliberation. The parliament has been dissolved. We are working for the community. So we want to find out what happens in our community and in each country. It is quite normal. It is normal for them to present their report, and the report is, in fact, what the population of Guinea-Bissau has experienced since the last report that was presented. Now, there is no problem with that. Guinea-Bissau can present its report. Now, for Niger, really, the speaker, I did not want to speak, but the case of Niger, the situation in Niger, I think that it is a problem that is now resolved. It is the heads of states that are meeting and saying that country X or Y is suspended and another country is not suspended. Out of respect for the institution that we represent here, quite frankly, this way of pointing at or organizing a small revolution that will not lead us anywhere. There is going to be a summit held on the 10th. Now, after the 10th, when they decide to suspend Niger, I'm quite certain, it goes without saying, we are going to be in the same boat as Burkina, Mali, and Guinea. It is not, we are not happy to be sitting here, but the president of the commission said, answered and spoke on behalf of the heads of state, the 15 heads of state, who met and said that for them, Niger was not suspended. So it is not because someone sees people from Niger in the parliament that you could just raise and say that we are to leave. When we are to leave, we will say goodbye to our colleagues. And we will say it very humbly. So, I have been in Parliament for 33 years. I've been there for a long time. And when the heads of state decide that Niger is still part of the ECOWAS community, well, all well and good, it is clear. And one of our colleagues is going to take the floor later on to explain our concerns. The last time when I chaired the deliberations, there were other countries, there were some countries during the whole session which did not present any report. And a member of the delegation, of their delegations, would explain before the chairman of the session why they are not presenting a report, and then we would know why this is not done. But I don't think that there should be any debate regarding the presentation based on what the president of the commission said the day before yesterday. So let us not, people start saying, people should not belabor the point.
And we're getting emotional. It's not good for our cohesion and coexistence. I want to beg for that. The matter is settled. And I want to beg those who are insisting to contribute to allow us continue with the program of today. And at the point of every need for any discussion, we can address the matter that could be raised. I say I want to beg. Because if we continuously discuss on this matter, let's allow the country report take place. If there are issues and discussion, we'll go ahead to do that. Please, matter settled. Respected colleagues, I thank you very much for your understanding, patience, kindness, and concern for all our various communities. With this, I want to invite the delegation from Guinea Bissau to present its country report.
Muito obrigada, Sr. Presidente.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm now going to present the report of Guinea-Bissau. The delegation was as follows. Honorable Khalifa Saidi was head of delegation. Honorable Aijasatu Kamara Pinto is member. Honorable Eo, myself, Honorable Armando Correa Dinesh, and the Honorable Manuel Dios. Excellency, Honorable Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, Honorable Deputy Speakers, Honorable Members of the ECOWAS Parliament, Excellencies, I would like to begin by greeting everyone present in the whole of our community parliament and hope that the second ordinary session of 2023 is crowned with many successes. As part of our practices, this country report provides a brief overview of the political, economic, and social situation in Guinea-Bissau since the last one, which was presented during the second ordinary session in November 2022. It was not possible to present the Guinea-Bissau country report during the first ordinary session in May of this year, as the members of our delegation were not present at that time, as they were all involved in the election campaign for the legislative elections, which took place on 4 June 2023. The structure of this report follows the template sent to us on 7th November by the General Secretariat of the ECOWAS Parliament, containing 5 chapters and 3 subchapters, including political situations, 2, security situation, 3, economic situation, 4, human rights situation, 5, state of implementation of community text. Roman 1, political situation. Let me recall that in May 2022, the President of the Republic decided to dissolve the National People's Assembly due to what he considered to be a serious institutional crisis, and at the time, he scheduled early parliamentary elections for the 18th of December of the same year. As it was not possible to hold elections on that date due to various circumstances, and eventually they only took place this year. In fact, the legislative elections for the choice of members of the National People's Assembly in Guinea-Bissau took place on 4th June 2023 with 20 political parties and 2 coalitions of parties admitted by the Supreme Court of Justice. They were carried out under the observation of Guinea-Bissau's international partners, namely ECOWAS, the African Union, the CPLP, among others, who considered them to be free, fair, and transparent. Of the 22 political groupings and coalitions that took part, only 5 won seats in the National People's Assembly, made up of 102 members, i.e. the PAITR, 54 MPs, Madam G, 29 MPs, PRS, 12 MPs, PTG, 6 MPs, and APU PDGB, 1 MP. The 102 elected members were sworn in on the 27th of July 2023, and the Bureau of Parliament was elected on the same day. There has been some makeover of the Parliament of Guinea-Bissau in this 11th legislature. However, gender equality remains below what is desirable, with only 13 women out of 102 MPs, which represents around 12.7%. Despite winning an absolute majority of seats in Parliament, the PAITR platform invited and signed political agreements of parliamentary and governmental significance with PRS and PTG. There are therefore two blocks in the National People's Assembly, a parliamentary majority bloc with 72 seats and a parliamentary minority bloc with 30 seats. The government that resulted from these elections was sworn in on the 13th of August 2023 and is made up of 19 ministries and 15 secretariats of state. Of the total 34 members of the government, only around 26%, or in other words, 9, are women. On the 14th of November, the first ordinary sessions of the 11th legislature began. At this session, the government program and the 2023 general state budget were presented, discussed, and approved, and the 2024 general state budget is also expected to be discussed and approved. The incident that took place on the 1st February 2022, considered by the country's authorities to be an attempted coup d'etat, continues to agitate the Guinea-Bissau political scene. As society awaits with anxiety, and there is a certain impatience regarding the trial of the civilians and military personnel arrested as part of the investigations carried out, and there is a dispute over jurisdiction between the civil and military courts. Recall the incident that took place on the 1st of February 2022 is related to the attack on the government's palace by an armed group of people during the meeting of the Council of Ministers chaired by the President of the Republic, which resulted in around a dozen casualties, including military, paramilitary, and civilians. At the beginning of 2023 of this year, from 24 January to the 3rd of February, the ECOWAS Parliament held two important events in our country.
O seminário sobre
The seminar on the single currency of our community and the first extraordinary session of our parliament, which was a very important political event for our regional organization and for Guinea-Bissau. The parliamentary seminar took place from the 24th to the 26th of January and enabled parliamentarians from the community to learn more about the project of ECOWAS single currency. The first extraordinary session, held from January 30th to February 3rd, was dedicated to the analysis and adoption of the ECOWAS Parliament's program of activities for 2023, and it was the biggest event held following our country's assumption of the chair of the Conference of Heads of State and Government of the Communities Organization. Security situation. The Guinea-Bissau Stabilization Support Mission, made up of 631 members from the different countries of the sub-region, has been stationed in Guinea-Bissau since May 2022 by decision of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. Having analyzed the security situation in the country, which is still not very stable, the heads of state and government decided during the Bissau summit to extend the mission's mandate for another year with the aim of guaranteeing security and political and social stability in the country. The mission set up in Guinea-Bissau with the mandate to support the country's defense and security forces in order to guarantee the security of the President of the Republic, the appointed authorities, and the citizens of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau. 2, to protect civilians and improve security conditions in accordance with international humanitarian law. Economic situation. The international economic situation has its repercussions on Guinea-Bissau's economic situation, which is characterized by uncontrolled inflation with an impact on the cost of living, especially the unreasonable prices of essential commodities. According to data from the International Monetary Fund, which is monitoring our economy, in December 2022, the Guinea-Bissau economy grew by 4.2% and should recover moderately to 4.5% of gross domestic product in 2023. This has been driven by disruptions in the supply chain and a reduction in demand and economic activity caused by measures and policies to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. Inflation has risen to 7.8% compared to 3.3% in 2021. The overall tax deficit fell from 5.5% of GDP in 2021 to 5.2% in 2022. The tax revenues remained the same at 9.1%, which equates to a wage tax revenue ratio of approximately 65.3%. Expenditure by government entities fell slightly from 24.5% of GDP in 2021 to 23.3% in 2022. On the other hand, public debt reached 80.2% in 2022. Meanwhile, the Macroeconomic and Budgetary Framework Committee recommended that the government consolidate and expand fiscal control to increase revenue and ensure the sustainability of public debt. The IMF's announcement of the end of 2022 came to a concrete conclusion earlier this year when it signed an agreement with the Guinea-Bissau authorities to negotiate a 36-month program under the extended credit facility worth $36.3 million. The government of Guinea-Bissau, through the Ministry of Fisheries, plans to start exporting the country's fish to the European Union within a year, hoping to have its fisheries laboratory accredited by then. The Guinea-Bissau authorities have been trying for several years to obtain this authorization, which will involve, among other things, setting up and running a fish quality and hygiene control laboratory and certification. A fish quality and hygiene control laboratory and certification. A team of European Union consultants were in Bissau to assess the steps already taken by the authorities, said that it would be able to finalize the entire process within the planned period. The government recently launched a national strategy to give most of the population access to the country's financial system, which currently covers only 18% of the population. The National Financial Inclusion Strategy was jointly drawn up by the government through the Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Central Bank of West African States, BCAO, to be implemented by 2027. The strategy's main target groups are rural populations, people with limited financial education, small and medium-sized businesses, as well as women and the youth. This year, the country benefited from the Regional Stabilization Fund created by ECOWAS in the amount of 9 million euros, which is an unprecedented technical and financial instrument that will improve the living conditions of our populations. Guinea-Bissau has thus become one of the first states to benefit from the Regional Stabilization and Development Fund, which ECOWAS promotes to help the most vulnerable countries. The amount corresponding to around 6 billion CFA francs is intended to support projects in the areas of finance, education, agriculture, electricity, infrastructure, among others, in the regions of Bafata, Gabu, Bolamo Bijagos, and Kinara.
Human rights situation. The Ministry of Justice and Human Rights recently announced the creation of the General Ombudsman Office for the Defense of Human Rights in Guinea-Bissau. The announcement was made during the opening of the National Validation Workshop for the reports on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Consultations are being held with actors working in the field of human rights, and subsequently we'll see how to consult with the National Human Rights Commissions. Guinea-Bissau joined the Convention on Environment and Human Rights this year. This is a UN international agreement that paves the way for strengthening democracy and environmental justice. With this addition, the country needs to implement the convention in the national legal system and create a popular action law on access to information. The public must participate in the decision-making process about the environment and have access to environmental justice. The country wants to use the convention to fight climate change, promote biodiversity, and protect, conserve, and safeguard the environment. It will enable public participation in decision-making and access to justice for people whose environmental rights are violated. As is well known, Guinea-Bissau is rich in natural resources and coastal, marine, and terrestrial biodiversity. However, it is one of the most vulnerable countries when it comes to climate change. The consequences are increased salinization and flooding in coastal regions, problems in agriculture, shortages of drinking water, and the destruction of infrastructure and ecosystems. Within the framework of the protection of fundamental rights, namely religious rights and the right to peace, the religious leaders organized a meeting and adopted a common agenda for peace in Guinea-Bissau. This common agenda of religious leaders for the promotion of peace Prevention of Radicalism and Violent Extremism in Guinea Bissau was adopted by more than 50 religious leaders from the Islamic, Catholic, and evangelical communities represented in the country. This common agenda for peace was adopted unanimously, in which religious leaders recognized the risk that the phenomena of radicalism and violent extremism pose to peace, stability, and socio-economic development. They also recognize the asymmetrical impact of radicalism and violent extremism on women and children, which affects all communities, social groups, and religious denominations. On the other hand, they repudiate the attempt to associate radicalism and violent extremism with religious concepts. Therefore, aware of the role of religious communities in consolidating peace, the religious leaders established the following initiatives as a compromise agreement. Advocate for the adoption of public policies to promote peace within the framework of the Peace Observatory. Promote national and international partnerships of good practices in the field of preventing radicalism and violent extremism. Ensure effective distancing from political parties and political parties' agendas, respecting the secularity of the state and the equality of all religious denominations. Actively work to identify and eradicate practices and narratives that jeopardize the common peace, particularly hate speech, the apology of religious intolerance, and the approach linked to ethnic tribal segregation. Work with traditional authorities, public authorities, civil society, and grassroots community organizations to adopt specific and transversal strategies to mitigate the risk of radicalization and violent extremism in the most vulnerable communities. 5. State of implementation of the community text. As mentioned in the November 2022 report, with the dissolution of the National People's Assemblies on the 16th May 2022, it was not possible for the plenary session of the Guinea-Bissau Parliament to meet, so there has been no progress in the ratification of community text. Until Parliament's dissolution, 51 of the 54 community texts had been approved and ratified, with only 3 more to go, some of which could be approved during this first ordinary session after the legislative elections in June. The text in question concern protocols relating to the following sectors and areas: justice sector, 1 text; health sector, 1 text; and free movement of persons and goods, 1 text. 5.1, status of the community levy. A delegation from the ECOWAS Commission, led by Mr. Moise Apollos Terra, head of accounting, in charge of the community levy, conducted another mission to Guinea-Bissau from the 9th to the 13th of October 2023 to assess the state of implementation of the provisions of the ECOWAS Community Levy Protocol by the state of Guinea-Bissau. At the end of the mission, The delegation welcomed the willingness and efforts made by the Guinea-Bissau authorities to pay in full their arrears on the community contribution and levy without having accumulated any new debts. The mission also concluded that this type of rigor, in which revenue is systematically deposited into the ECOWAS Commission's account at the central bank, is an example for all member states to follow. The mission recommends that the state of Guinea-Bissau should be reimbursed the sum of around 186 million francs CFA as an overpayment was made up till the 30th of September 2023. The situation regarding the free movement of people and goods. Protocol A P.1/5/79 of 1979 on the free movement of persons and goods and right of residence and establishment of ECOWAS region is being implemented in a minimally satisfactory manner, despite some difficulties at the border checkpoints between Guinea-Bissau and neighboring countries, the Republic of Guinea and Senegal. As part of the implementation of this protocol, the ECOWAS identity card format was adopted and was issued to Guinea-Bissau citizens. The implementation began in March 2018. It is consolidated and progressing normally. Similarly, the issuance of ECOWAS passports to Guinea-Bissau citizens is already consolidated and at an advanced stage of implementation. Regarding borders with neighboring countries, the competent authorities are committed to complying with the recommendations of the community and continental organizations. On the 17th of November 2023, Guinea-Bissau and Senegal began talks in Dakar, Senegal, to set up a joint committee to review the land border markers and delimit the maritime border between the two countries. On the 16th of November 2023, the Guinea-Bissau Parliament gave its consent to the creation of this joint committee. The joint committee will discuss the land border markers and confirm that the land border signs installed by Portugal and France are still in the same places. There are reports that in various locations on both sides, houses have been built on the border markers. Colonialism had left more than 100 plaques marking the land border between Guinea-Bissau and Senegal, and around 90 plaques between Guinea-Bissau and Guinea-Conakry. Some of these signs have been ripped off, according to local sources. The creation of the committee between Guinea-Bissau and Senegal, like the one that already exists with Guinea-Conakry, is part of a recommendation by the African Union, which has asked all border countries to analyze the marks left by colonialism. The African Union wants to prevent the issue of borders become a source of conflict between countries. Equal rights for women and men. The gender equality situation has not evolved much in Guinea-Bissau since the findings of the last country report. Despite the approval of several laws by the Guinea-Bissau Parliament, much remains to be done in terms of equal rights for women and men. By way of illustration, last year, more than 600 cases of sexual and gender-based domestic violence against women, girls, and children were reported. These were just the cases that were brought to the attention of state institutions and NGOs, namely the Judicial Police, the Institute for Women and Children, Amik Renliu, Niger, Aikatambur, among others. Of these cases, more than 550 were addressed and only around 70 were concluded through mediation, trial, conviction, and other proceedings. With this illustration, it can be said that there is slight progress, so efforts should be made to improve in the specific areas of comprehensive and institutional sensitization, particularly in the family, law enforcement by the Public Prosecutor's Office and the courts, combating labor corruption, infrastructures for receiving victims, psychosocial assistance for victims, strengthening the functional capacity of the institutions, strengthening the capacity of judicial and other law enforcement agencies, dissemination of existing laws and policies, improving institutional coordination mechanisms, and the creation of a single harmonized database. This is all we have to say for now. I wish you once again a pleasant stay in Abuja and fruitful meetings. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, presenter. The next will be Benin Republic. I now give the floor to Benin Republic. Honorable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres du Bureau du Parlement de la
Mr. Speaker, honorable members of the Bureau of the Community, Parliament of the Community, the Secretary General, their honorable members of Parliament from ECOWAS member states. I'm speaking here today on behalf of the delegation of the Republic of Benin. I would like to first and foremost express my profound and sincere greetings to all the members of our August Assembly. I would also like to express my empathies with countries that have faced various trials that could be linked to natural disaster or those caused by humans. The Beninese delegation comprises of Honorable Sedami R. Medegan Fagla, head of the delegation, Honorable Nuhume Yusufu Bidda, Honorable Isa Salif Saleh, Honorable Hippolyte Azume, and my humble self, your servant for the day. Mr. Speaker, this report forms part of the second ordinary session of the ECOWAS Parliament, and we are going to read the report in line with the prescribed format given to each country, and we are going to start with the political situation. Mr. Speaker, the Republic of Benin on the political front has undertaken a number of reforms of the partisan landscape and for a number of actors and sectors which had impacts naturally on what can be termed as the Beninese political class. And I'd like to quickly point out some of the reforms that were undertaken and some of which had taken place in 2023. The first reform has to do with political parties. The creation of political parties with a new charter for political parties adopted in 2020-2021 has established very tight conditions, rigid conditions for the establishment of a political party. At that time, to establish a political party, you needed 10 members or 10 supporters from 12 departments. So altogether, with 120 members, you could create a political party. Today, this number has been reviewed to about 10 for each commune, meaning that today, to establish a political party, you need about 1,200 founding members, meaning that the political parties to be created must enjoy national spread. Another reform covers on borders on women's right promotion with the constitutional reforms for seats allocated to women constitutionally, which is 24 altogether. So that means constitutionally 24 women should be elected into the Beninese parliament. It should not just be 24, but 24 is the minimum number of women to be voted into the parliament. Another reform, I would say, has to do with the candidature erstwhile to be a candidate in legislative or any other post. You didn't need to be up to date on your taxes, but today no one can be a candidate to any political office if he has not cleared his taxes before his candidature could be accepted. There is an introduction of what you call the electoral threshold, which which requires that when you are taking part in elections, each political party would be required to have a minimum of 10% across the territory of the country before they could have a seat in parliament. So you'd understand, therefore, that the implementation of these various reforms would have implications for the political class. And so, for the 200 political parties that we had before these reforms were embarked on, today we have only 15 political parties legally registered and who have met all the conditions to take part in political and democratic process in the country. It is with these political parties that the legislative elections of 8 January 2023 were held this year, and these elections witnessed the participation of these political parties who have met all the conditions. And is this list that brought about various results, and of this list, only 3 met all the formalities and reached and obtained the threshold of 10% of the total votes across the country to get seats. And so only 3 political parties had a minimum of 10% and are therefore represented at the National Assembly. And so henceforth in the Beninese Assembly, we have 3 political parties, that is Union Progressive Le Renouveau with 53 seats, the Bloc Républicain with 28 seats, and the Democrats, which are the opposition, with 28 political parties. Those are 2 parties which form the majority supporting the government business, namely the BR-UPR, total 81 seats of MPs out of 109, while the opposition, represented by the Democrats, obtained 28 seats. These elections took place in a climate of peace and security, serenity, completed the process started in 2016 by the 7th legislature and continued by the 8th legislature of the Benin National Assembly. And so today we are at the 9th assembly without any interruption since 1991. Coupled with the increase in the number of seats in the Beninese parliament from 83 to 109 seats now, it is worth mentioning that for the first time in our history, 29 women entered the Beninese parliament, a complete departure from previous legislatures. Never have more than 8 women MPs sat at the same time in the Beninese chamber from 1991 to 2022. Henceforth, I was saying we have never had more than 6.5% women representation up to 2022, but since January 2023, we have had 27% of female presence in the Beninese chamber, representing 29 out of 109 MPs. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to state that since October 2023, so 2 months ago, the national political landscape has met with some developments in the National Assembly. Indeed, His Excellency President Bono, President Boboni, has been an active supporter of all initiatives of of political parties, including even members of the opposition. Nevertheless, the political dialogue has separated countries between the opposition and majority, and the President of the Republic, as well as the head of opposition, and this characterizes the political landscape in Benin. The last meeting between the President of the Republic and head of opposition was held on 28 November 2023 and focused on matters of national interest and specific matters raised by the opposition in preparations to the general elections slated for 2026, the first in the history of the democratic history of Benin. I'd like to say that henceforth there will be general elections within the same year, legislative, communal, parliamentary, and local elections. And so it's the first time in the history of Benin that we are going to experiment on as from 8 May 2026. So provisions have started, measures have been put in place since 2023. And so the opposition is asking for a review of the electoral list freeing of political persons arrested due to political reasons. And the President of the Republic announced that the government could finally conclude the review with the persons chosen by the members of the opposition. And he announced that presidential pardon could be granted to the supporters of some political parties members who were arrested during political party demonstrations. On the security situation, the sub-regional security situation continues to be marked, as everyone is aware, by terrorism, coupled with the activities of transnational criminal organizations, as well as intercommunity conflicts, notably amongst farmers and herdsmen. Benin, unfortunately, is not spared of this scourge. For 2 years now, the terrorist threat, formerly limited to the Sahel-Saharan Strip, has stretched its tentacle towards the coastal states of Benin, notably our country, the Republic of Benin, and our neighbor, the Republic of Togo, which today has been at the forefront of these attacks. After the kidnap of 2 French tourists and the murder of their Beninese guide in the northern part of the country, Benin experienced its widespread terrorist attack. Since then, the country has suffered about 15 attacks, and as at the end of 2022, several victims, several persons were killed along the border with Burkina Faso and Niger. This situation has led to several other terrorist activities.
Le GNIM.
There is also the GNIM and the ECOWAS, that is Islamic State in the Sahara. The attacks continued during the year 2023 with a total number of terrorist attacks known as at the end of November was more than 50 in our country. This situation has led to some displacement of population, closing of schools in more than 10 areas. And if the situation is still under control with the deployment of the 3,000 military of the Mirador operation at the northern border of Benin, it remains a security challenge for which the state used its budget to equip the forces of defense and security forces. Nowadays, let us say rather last year, 1,800 policemen and 2,000 military were recruited. That was in 2022. And to that should be added, between now and the end of this year, 5,000 new defense and security forces officers. And Benin has already started recruiting them. All this is being done at the expense of some development programs which could have had a positive impact on human development in the country. In total, the state devoted the equivalent of 80 billion CFA francs of expenditures, additional expenditures, to the security sector and for the defense in the year 2023. Furthermore, for a better pooling of intelligence services and response strategies to face the regional security challenge, Benin participates in the initiative of Accra and participates in the multinational joint force, which are frameworks and instruments of security cooperation established at the sub-regional level. Aside from the terrorist threat, internal security in the country remains well guaranteed, with a better coverage of the national territory, which made it possible to eradicate for now more than 5 years the activities of highway robbers and other offenders. However, cybercriminality remains a main challenge for the government, and with the phenomenon of what is called the gay men. Those are young people who have no other profession, sorry to say so, but to use internet networks to steal from banks abroad, to steal from banks on the national territory, and this gives a bad image of our country nowadays, but the government is tracing them, and unfortunately sometimes there are losses of human lives from those different groups. The human rights situation. The Commission or the national agency responsible for human rights in Benin. The Beninese Commission, established by law number 2012-36, adopted by the National Assembly at its December 17 sitting, operates normally outside of the management difficulties that are common to any structure. It regularly presents its reports to the National Assembly, and the reports are the subject of debates and recommendations by the members of Parliament. The Beninese Human Rights Commission has been distinguished internationally for its good results. As part of the renewal of the mandate of the members of the Commission, it was accredited at the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions, GANHRI, under the sponsorship of the European Union and of the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative on 15 March 2023 in Geneva. Without claiming to be the best when it comes to defense and human rights, Benin can look forward to continuing its successful march towards the establishment of a predictable rule of law and legal security for all. Now on the specific situation and measures relating to the protection of women's rights. As we said, the promotion of women's rights is one of the priorities of the government of President Patrice Talon. A strong signal was given in July 2021 with the revitalization of the National Institute for Women. It is a body responsible for promoting and respecting women's rights in the Republic of Benin. Let me add that the law now offers the possibility to the National Women's Institute to take to court as a prosecutor anybody at any time and for any case. In other words, the Institute can substitute itself to victims to sue in court, and this has consequences. One can therefore mention still in the framework of the protection of women, one can refer to the law 2019-43 of November 15, 2019, establishing the electoral code in the Republic of Benin, which promoted the increase in the representation of women in the National Assembly to almost 30%, as I have already mentioned, during the January 2023 elections. Law 2021-12, amending and supplementing Law 2003-04 of March 3rd, 2003, relating sexual health and reproduction in the Republic of Benin, which further regulates the condition of resorting to legal abortion in order to prevent the disastrous consequences of clandestine abortion. Adoption of the Law 2021-11, relating to special measures for the repression of offenses committed on grounds of sex and the protection of women. These offenses, which have the sex of the victim as a prior consideration, include sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape, early marriage, female genital mutilation, and aggravated violence against women or girls. Exemplary sanctions have already been imposed, among others, on teachers at all levels, from primary to higher education, for acts of harassment of learners, girls or students. In addition to the protection of young learners and free primary education and lower secondary education for girls throughout the country, the government has further extended its policy of exemption from school fees for female students in the second cycle of secondary education in 20 municipalities municipalities out of the 77 in the country. In addition, 30,000 female students should also receive during the year that is from the year 2023, monetary transfers over a period of 3 years, which will allow them to meet all the related costs of good education. The 10 best students in the baccalaureate, I'm talking here about girls, referring about the 10 best girls in the baccalaureate from each year of the 12 departments of the country, are fully supported by the state for their university education for 3 years. In other words, until they graduate. So for all their studies and everything that you can imagine. At the same time, 10 students enrolled in scientific fields will also receive automatic scholarship from the start of the 2022-2023 academic year. That is the academic year that just ended. The objective of this is to encourage girls to enroll in scientific fields in higher education. As part of its employment policy, the state recruited during the year 2022 more than 12,000 young people. Now, this figure should increase at the end of 2023 should increase to 30,000. These are recruitment in the education field. In terms of health, since 2021, the government has undertaken the construction or rehabilitation of 725 health centers, 21 area hospitals, and a large national referral hospital. This program is being implemented under the supervision of the Health Sector Regulatory Authority, which monitors the standards and quality of the implementation of this vast program. Benin has therefore decided to stop medical evacuations abroad, except for a few exceptional cases. I am repeating exceptional cases, and statistics are there to show it. Access to care for the poorest is already ensured in 57 of the 77 municipalities that exist in Benin. During this year 2023, the government plans to ensure the entry into force of compulsory health insurance for the entire population. The work is in progress, has gone a long way, and waiting for the end of the year to get the report on the statistics which will indicate how far we have gotten regarding the objectives that had been set out. For access to energy, a special program for social connection to the electricity network has been launched and has already recorded more than 100,000 applications for approval since the end of 2022. So this went on all during the year 2023. Now, regarding the supply of potable water, the government launched a special program in 2022 intended for the installation of 95 new multi-village water supply systems in 75 of the country's 77 municipalities, intended to ensure the supply of potable water to more than 1 million inhabitants. That is for the year 2023. On a social level, the government has made significant efforts to strengthen children's education by keeping students in school. Thus, the National School Feeding Program made it possible to cover 75% of schools, I'm talking about primary schools, throughout the national territory. The 100% coverage is the objective to be achieved by 2026, and the government is working hard on it. In order to better meet the needs of the labor market and prevent youth unemployment, the government has placed emphasis on vocational training. Hence, a vast program to build and rehabilitate numerous technical high schools was launched 2 years ago. And of course, the first the schools have already been rehabilitated, and the technical education programs are being reviewed. And I would like to add that my research laboratory is involved in a program to review the curricula of teaching curricula for technical education in our country. Just to say that this is an ongoing process. On the environment, Let me skip a few points. On the environment, the government has embarked on a relentless fight against the sources of greenhouse gas emissions, starting with the policy to facilitate the renewal of the fleet of vehicles in circulation in Benin in the short term. Thus, new vehicles are exempt from VAT and customs duties. VAT, value added tax, and customs duties have been almost eliminated because they have been reduced by 99% for electric vehicles. It means that when you buy a new car today in Benin, customs duties that you have to pay will represent only 1% of the tax of the customs duties. So it is just a symbolic amount to encourage all citizens to purchase new cars rather than importing used vehicles, used cars, which represent a big market, in fact, for some people. So you see what I mean. Economic growth. Economic growth in Benin was boosted, among other things, by the good performance of this agricultural sector, in particular cotton production, which increased from 452,000 tons in 2017 to 678,000 tons in 2019, making Benin the leading cotton producer in Africa. These performances continue to improve from year to year and reach 728,000 tons in 2021. However, one needs to admit that despite maintaining its leading position as first cotton producer on the African continent, cotton production experienced a fall and dropped to 587,000 tons in 2023. And the government, because of a number of hazards, is of the view that we cannot produce more than 575,000 tons. So there is, we are facing major difficulties relating to this export commodity, which is the main export commodity of Benin. Now, on the, I'm not going to give you all the statistics, but for cereals, for grains, Benin produces enough grains, enough cereals, and food products to be spared shortage of food products. For instance, Benin produces 11,500,000 tons of food products, and Benin, in the for some products, for some export products like pineapple, 400,000 tons of pineapple, 150,000 tons of cashew nuts for the last for the year 2022. So these are just a few statistics. Now, still on the economic front, if the year 2022 was marked by a 6% growth, the year 2023 should be concluded with a slightly higher rate, that is 6.5%. There are some characteristics that one should refer to, because the opening of borders with Nigeria and the resumption of the traffic in the port of Cotonou in 2022 were slowed down by the events that took place in Niger. Hence, in June 2023, which led to sanctions against the new junta in that country, unfortunately. And as a result of that, borders were closed, and the most important ones were the one with Benin. That resulted from it overwhelming traffic at the port and reduction of the traffic on the Benin-Niger corridor, and this, of course, penalizes the populations living at the borders. The end of the construction of the Benin-Niger pipeline during the first half of the year 2023, and its operation should lead to the arrival of crude oil to the oil terminal of Benin in December 2023, that is this month. This is going to be a new opportunity to earn income for Benin, and should contribute to increasing the economic situation in 2023. I'm also going to talk about infrastructure, that is the construction of roads, shopping malls, and this has been continuing during the whole year 2023. Of course, the cotton production continues to drop. It is our main cash crop, and this is a source of concern that could have an impact on the acceleration of the economic growth of our country for 2024. The rate of inflation at the national level, it is 2%, below the regional average of 7% in the UMR region. And that level is below the 5% threshold set out by the macroeconomic conversion mechanism of ECOWAS. The financial operations of the state for 2022, so let me not mention figures because they are contained in the document, but I would just like to say that the debt service represents 177.2 billion for Benin during the year 2023. And Benin, would also like to say, has paid all the different levies provided for under ECOWAS, the African Union, and YMU. And this amounts to 27 billion something of the CFA francs, including 9 billion for the ECOWAS community levy, 14 for YMU, so Benin has met its obligation. Let me skip again a few pages here so that we can move fast. Now, during the year 2023, the state laid emphasis on the following priorities: access of all to drinkable water, the consolidation of the programs to reach the objectives of the SDGs, financing of structural projects, now the special initiative SDGs, and took into account specialized targets for transfers of funds, that is FADEC. FADEC is for a fund for the support of municipalities' development and rigorous monitoring of the implementation of the SDGs. Statistics, performance statistics on those different sectors are not yet available at our level and will certainly be reflected in the 2024 report. Now, if the state of implementation of criteria of macroeconomic convergence criteria with ECOWAS, pursuant to the letter SAW COMEP DMS stroke L stroke L stroke SKH of 13 June 2015, the ECOWAS committee adopted new convergence criteria, macroeconomic convergence criteria, for the mechanism of multilateral surveillance. Hence, out of the 11 convergence criteria, 6, including 4 primary ones and 2 secondary ones, just to recall the content of that provision, community provision. Thus, during the year 2018, the beginning of the year 2018, Benin complied with the other criteria except the one relating to the ratio of the budget deficit over nominal GDP. That is the only criteria that Benin has not yet been able to meet. And the table in the document gives information on Benin's performance in the different convergence criteria. You have the table, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Now, state of implementation of ECOWAS community tax. Payments of proceeds from the ECOWAS community level. State of payments. Benin applies the community levy on customs procedures in accordance with the provisions of the said protocol. The Ministry of Economy and Finance has taken measures to ensure that the community levy proceeds recovered by customs units are directly transferred to the ECOWAS accounts opened at the BCAO Bank since February 2018. And according to data from the latest ECOWAS mission to monitor the application of the protocol relating to the community levy in Benin, a mission during which summary statements of the community levy produced by the Directorate General of Customs, the statement from the Directorate General of the Treasury and Public Accounting, the statement from the Management Company of the Single Window of Benin, and the monitoring table of the community levy of the ECOWAS Commission were compared. Now, we call it reconciliation, I think, in the technical language, technical jargon. It appears that the total amount of a community levy arrears amounts for Benin amounts from July 2003, that is 20 years ago, from 2023 to 2022, where the mission took place. The amount, as I said, amounts to 17,873,300,331 that Benin has committed itself to pay progressively, and I think that even this year, some part of it was paid. Now, the figures will be updated for the next presentation. Measures taken to settle the arrears. Benin has made commendable efforts with regard to the implementation of Protocol AP 1796 relating to the conditions of application of the community levy, and measures are being taken to clear the arrears. There are some challenges relating to the implementation of the community levy. You will see, you can read it in the document. Protocol on the free movement of persons and goods. Benin implements the protocol on the free movement of persons and goods, the right of residence and settlement, and I'm not going to talk about the different references. The protocol of 31st January on the definition of the notion of originating product from member states of the community. Benin implements a convention on road transits between states for goods of 1982, based on which led to the creation of two transit roads between ECOWAS countries to facilitate the circulation of goods. The protocol on the regulation on the transit in ECOWAS states, defining the conditions under which road transport must take place between ECOWAS member states. Now, the technical standards for vehicles, the routes, etc. And last, there is also the Accra Memorandum of Understanding of September 11, 2007, between ECOWAS, member state of the Abidjan, Lagos, Cote d'Ivoire, that is Benin, Togo, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Ghana, and the Abidjan-Lagos Corridor Organization, aimed to facilitate transport and road transit on the Abidjan-Lagos Corridor. Now you will see in the annex, you will have a table containing all the details. Now let me move straight to the conclusions of this report. Honorable Speaker, dear colleagues, I would like to conclude by referring here to a number of things. In June 18, 2019, the current chairman of the task force, President Sadou Djibo, submitted to the then President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore his report on free movement of persons and goods within ECOWAS, in which Benin was designated as the first country in this matter. That is, when it comes to free movement of goods and people in the ECOWAS region. This state of affairs has only further improved, And two main measures illustrating the expression of the political will of President Patrice Talon in this matter facilitated this situation. This is what led to this result. You know that Benin decided to do away with visas between all African countries and our countries. So any citizen from an African country can visit Benin without a visa, can stay there during 90 days before starting to undertake visa formalities. This is over and goes beyond the community area and extends to the whole continent. The second measure concerns the ban and removal of all police barriers on the national territory. Thus, after the completely simplified formalities for ECOWAS citizens at the various border posts, you can travel freely on Beninese territory, even with your original vehicle, without any stops. And this, again, is also a performance of our country relating to free movement of people and goods. I also talked about some consequences linked to that, namely agricultural inputs. When I take the year 2022-2023, the government of Benin took measures very early to subsidize agricultural inputs and make them available to our farmers at unbeatable prices. And today, agricultural inputs are available in Benin, but unfortunately, they attract the greed of all traffickers from the countries of the sub-region who buy them to resell them outside of Benin. And measures have been taken thereon to combat these unfair practices of crooked traders and other traffickers who enrich themselves on the back of the Beninese budget. And this has led at times with some countries a few contradictions. Well, it is not a way of limiting the free movement of goods and people in Benin, but it is just a way of protecting the subsidies that Benin grants to its agriculture and to its farmers. Nonetheless, and for winding us, Benin invite the ECOWAS Commission to take all necessary measures to resolve totally the difficulties which constitute an impediment to the free movement of approved goods in the framework of trade liberalization of ECOWAS in the Lagos-Abidjan corridor. I rest my case, Mr. Honorable Speaker, and thank you for your patience. Till next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Honorable Minister and Leader of the Delegation. At this point, we will allow, even though not in our content on other paper, will allow Niger to make their statement.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, members of the Bureau of the ECOWAS Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, honorable members of the ECOWAS Parliament. Today, there were questions on whether Niger should make a presentation of its report at all and why this report was not submitted. First of all, I'd like to remind all of us here present of what happened in Niger, but a lot of you probably do not know Niger. And since you do not know it, I would like to commence by introducing Niger to you, and permit me to do that. Niger is about 1.278 million kilometers square. It has 7 neighbors, therefore 7 borders: Mali, Algeria, Libya, Chad, Nigeria, Benin, and Burkina Faso. It has 1,500 kilometers of border between Niger and Nigeria, and 300 kilometers of borders between Benin and Niger. I'm mentioning these 2 countries because you all know what is happening At the moment, within our community, ECOWAS, these two borders have been closed, and I will come back to this matter later. What is the context? On the 26th July, first of all, I'm going to mention the fact that the report that we did not present, why didn't we do that? Like every other person, each time we were here, we presented our report. At no time did you hear any discordant tune within our group when this group is made up of the opposition and the majority. We have never had any misunderstanding. We had ensured that everything transpired smoothly. And so today, amongst us, we have, for the first time, not been able to agree, those that have been overthrown and those who are on seat. And so, you know, we cannot present the same thing. Secondly, the report presented by the various countries is merely a copy and paste report by most countries before they get here. And so I'd like to remind you that these are reports that are usually consensual between the legislature of the country and the executive of that country, because it is often a summary of what the executive has done that is presented here. And so I'll take you back to what happened in Niger. On the 26th of July, there was an overthrow of the government of the day. On the 30th of July, the heads of states and governments of ECOWAS met, and during this meeting, what you are all aware as a decision was taken, and a one-week ultimatum was given to the team that overthrew the government to return power to the elected president, otherwise they will be attacked militarily and be forced to return power. And you all know that this has not been done, and that is why 4 months later today we are in the situation that you are all conversant with. I'm going to start, Mr. Speaker, to say that in the ECOWAS text, we should all, before getting here, the assumption is that all of us are literate, that is, we know how to read and write. And with the new policies that we have as members of parliament of the ECOWAS parliament, we are all capable of understanding every document and reading it. There is a blend between, for us, between presenting a report and our presence here. There was a blend. And why am I talking about this amalgamation? We need to understand and to know that we are here by the will of the heads of states and government of ECOWAS, who, as of today, do not recognize the military government. They still recognize the presidency of President Bazoum, and they are working on the understanding that President Bazoum is still president of Niger, and the understanding is that the dissolved parliament is still in place. And so from there, you are all aware of the mediation efforts that were made. There was a mediation of Nigeria by ulamas of Nigeria, the former presidents of Nigeria, and then even an ECOWAS through ad hoc committees and so on and so forth. And I will cite, I'll mention Togo, which spared no effort in trying to broker peace. And that is where we are today. So what is the real problem of Nigerians today? We all know that it's the sanctions imposed, and we are all concerned about how these sanctions could be lifted and how we could come and talk about the convergence criteria, or to tell you the budget deficit and so on and so forth, which has not been complied with or has been complied with. So this criteria, and of course coupled with the security situation, is something that we are all concerned in Niger, because I did mention the problem also with the border with Niger. And we all know what is happening in Africa, and especially in our countries, is the fact that today Libya is in disarray, and this affects us, and insecurity is now the order of the day. And so sanctions are three-pronged, and our major concern is to present to you our position and to seek for your help on how these sanctions against Niger could be lifted. These sanctions largely revolve around border closures, which is the first concern. The second one has to do with finances. The UEMOA sanctions, which are weighing heavily and are crushing on Niger. And the third one, and how, and all of you are witnesses to this, because at the beginning of our session, we presented a type of a sort of petition to this high table, requesting that these sanctions be lifted. The political situation in Niger, as it is today, is what? It is that there is a military government in place. It has formed its government. It has set up a council of state, because you know that to operate you need institutions, and these institutions have been progressively put in place. And so what to do now? The way to go is either to recognize and accept the situation as it is, or, like the Deputy Speaker said, the Speaker will take a decision whether to recognize the regime or to provide solutions, so that I cannot predict what is going to happen on the 10th. But this is where we are today. And so you couldn't get a better political situation from Niger than what I have just described. And so the fact is that we have no report to present to you on the other 4 points which is requested. We have only the political situation to describe to you and to narrate to you. And of course, maybe in the questions that you will ask, you are going to get further details with respect to what you expect. Especially from the report that has not been written, and therefore which we couldn't give you. So there, Mr. Speaker, we don't have a report to present, but we have the political situation to narrate before you. And this is to say that this is the political situation in which Niger finds itself today. And so we want this fact to be accepted, that Niger is under an embargo, and that the people are suffering more than those who are ruling the country today. And therefore, we must all come together to proffer solutions. So there, colleagues, in a few words is what I have to say with respect to this. We are waiting for you to help us to lift these illegal sanctions against Niger, because nowhere in our text is the mention of the closure of borders or economic embargoes against us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Honorable Jibo. Honorable colleagues, we appreciate all the presenters and we thank them immensely. And I invite the SG to open register for those who want to intervene or contribute. Respected colleagues, thank you. I will still plead in the normal tradition to be concise in terms of our contribution and direct our questions to the specific country we wish to. I have the honor to invite distinguished Senator Ndime for his intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and distinguished colleagues. My comments will be on Niger. And also I will round out by a question to the presenter. Distinguished colleagues, we know the situation in Nigeria, so I don't need to go over it again. The only thing I want to emphasize is the humanitarian crisis that the poor and innocent people were exposed to as a result of the sanction. What happened in Niger has been happening in Africa. We are not encouraging it because we as parliamentarians are the definition of democracy. Without the parliament, there is no democracy. Even now in Niger, where you have the military, the two arms of government still exist, and that is the executive and the judiciary. So what defines democracy is the presence of parliament. And what also parliament means, or democracy means, is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. These sanctions imposed on Niger is supposed to be on some people, but not on all the people. As it is now, it is not only Niger that is suffering the consequence of these sanctions, but 7 states in Nigeria are also suffering. Because my state, Borno, where I come from, Yobe, our neighbors, Kano, Katsina, Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, are all bordering Niger. We are like brothers and sisters. These are land borders. We depend on one another for several things, and the effect of the sanction is felt down to Ghana, Togo, and the other countries that are at the other side bordering Niger, because goods and services, because they are landlocked, have to pass. Most of us know this. So we as a parliament, my own appeal is that before the end of this session, although the ad hoc committee that was formed have clearly, in its interim recommendation report, said that, or recommended that the sanctions be lifted. We don't support military because it affects us directly. But when we do this accusation, we should also look at ourselves. We, the parliamentarians, in one way or the other, have also contributed to the problem. We, as parliamentarians, are charged with the responsibility of oversight, of protecting the Constitution in every country, of drafting or amending the Constitution. The trouble starts when leadership wants to stay in power forever. And it is the parliament that is normally used to change the Constitution. Some of these countries are making this progress now. And who bears the consequence? We are the first victims, yet we have not learned enough lesson. I must commend, even though it's like praising ourselves, we from the Anglophone, I think, are doing better in this regard than our brothers from the Francophone. In Nigeria, when Obasanjo was the president, he served 2 terms and he attempted to do the 3rd term. We resisted. And that's better for our democracy. If you see where government changed hands smoothly in Africa, or specifically West Africa, the countries that are doing that mostly is the Anglophone. Recently, Liberia demonstrated democracy where we are, conceded defeat. In Nigeria, after 2 terms, Jonathan conceded defeat. In Sierra Leone, in Gambia, there was a change in government before now. I can go on naming that. So we as parliamentarians have to also look inward and make sure that these things do not happen in our country. So I want to recommend or suggest that we unanimously before the end come out with a parliamentarian position on Niger that reflects on or affects as it affects the masses. The poor people are the ones suffering, especially women and children. Even the humanitarian services is cut off. And as the member presented, their financial accounts and support have been strangled. Who bears the brunt? It is the poor. We must stand up for this and make sure that the sanctions are lifted. And in return, we should also demand that the Niger military must come up with a clear and definite timetable for return to democratic rule. So my question to the member from Niger is, if we succeed in asking the ECOWAS heads of states to lift the sanctions, it is expected that there will be reciprocal action from the military in Niger, especially as it relates to the safety and release of the ousted president, and also the timetable for handing over the power to democratically elected government. As I said, now the question to Jibo is, what is the government of Niger, as it is now, have on the table as a prerequisite for the lifting of the sanction? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator. Honorable Dabo Alhagi has the floor now.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to join my colleague that spoke earlier on to thank the various presenters for ably presenting their reports, and perhaps the third one for giving a statement or political situational statement. Honorable Speaker, to begin with, the latter, that is the honorable member that gave situational political statement from Niger, I don't question the legitimacy of the presence of Niger in the parliament on the basis of the position of ECOWAS authority, so long as they have the mandate to decide the representation of any state in any of ECOWAS institutions. However, having had the statement from Niger confirming the act of coup d'etat or takeover and confirming the presence of a government, whether legitimate or otherwise, and Council of State, perhaps in the absence of the National Assembly or Parliament. I believe now, despite giving room for the dialogue to bear fruit, there is a need for ECOWAS to take a position as far as the military coup or attempted coup is concerned. In my view, the statement that is earlier given had clearly manifested there is no longer an attempted coup. It is a coup. If that is recognized, as long as the dialogue is going, I think what should be given now is for the military to declare the transition and return the country to civilian rule in the soonest possible time. There should not be any debate over whether it is attempted or not attempted, but the need to return the country to civilian rule. That should be the utmost concern. And I align myself also to the position of the earlier member who spoke about the lifting of all sort of sanctions on Niger. Having said so, Honorable Speaker, let me make comments on Guinea Bissau. I think for this case of Guinea Bissau, I have a kind of mixed feeling. I position myself to receive them just from their parliamentary elections. Only Monday to realize that there was an attempted coup and eventually led to the dissolution of the People's National Assembly. That act is unfortunate. I share the feeling, the sad feeling, with the members of Guinea-Bissau. I know it is their constitution that dictates, but this is making the democracy in Guinea-Bissau very fragile. I think in as much as ECOWAS is giving stabilization support mission to Guinea-Bissau, it should go beyond security and all sorts of protection, but how to stabilize the fragile and the military democracy in Guinea-Bissau should now be the utmost concern of ECOWAS. It cannot be a back and forth democracy. We want to see, as we saw yesterday in the report of Liberia, where Liberia has been described as the beacon of democracy. And we hope and look forward to see Guinea-Bissau also one day to be regarded as a beacon of democracy in West Africa. This cannot go without giving all the support necessary to make sure the democratic situation in Guinea-Bissau is stabilized and regularized. Honorable Speaker, I submit.
Thank you very much, sir. I now give the floor to Dr. Haruna Michelia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. I want to begin by commending Jibo for giving a concise political situation in Niger, and to concur with the last two speakers regarding the sanctions, which, but we should be careful. Sanctions are imposed based on the policy or position of the heads of states. And I don't think, no matter how much we talk here or try to pass resolutions, can change that, because it is the only weapon that you can use to put pressure on the coup leaders. However, the issue of the border is the one that affects the common man. Niger is bordering 7 countries, and so also Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. They are bordering so many other countries. And border closure are the issues that affect the common man. I give an example. Nigeria, through the local government of, we have so many local governments that are bordering Niger. And in fact, you will find some families where half are in Niger, half are in Nigeria. If you close the border, you are indirectly affecting those common people that maybe on a daily basis go across to do business. So these are areas where we can put pressure on the heads of states. Since I don't think it's a policy, let them open up the borders and the common people can interact and live their normal lives. But the sanctions on the leaders should remain, so that it will encourage them to come up with blueprint of coming back or bringing back democracy in their various countries. So that is my position, which concurs with what Senator Ndume has said, with a little, adjustment as regards the border. Let's come up with a position seriously to open up the borders, let the communities continue to interact, but the coup leaders should remain under sanctions. And I believe whatever we are doing to Niger, we should always remember Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, so that because they are all our brothers, and they should always know that we have them at the back of our mind. We want them to come back as quickly as possible so that we can be united West Africa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, distinguished honorable. Next is Honorable Fatoumata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I would like to make it categorically clear that I am not against anybody sitting in this assembly, but rules are rules. One rule should be for everybody. That was what I meant. So I am not against anybody. So I want to make that categorically clear. And then I will agree with the distinguished Senator Alindumbe about the sanctions. We understand, maybe we agree with Honorable Jibo, we might not know Niger, but in terms of geography, the little that we learned, we know the position of Niger. We might not know the politics, but looking at basic politics, we know what a coup d'etat is. And we know that any coup d'etat that lasts more than 72 hours is very unlikely to be an attempted coup d'etat. And we must be truthful to ourselves and speak truth when we come here, because we all took oaths in this assembly. What we are here is to make sure that we protect every community citizen, Niger being a part of the community, just like Gambia, where I am from, just like Burkina, who is also suspended, just like Mali, and just like Guinea. So we need to speak from our hearts. We need to be honest. when we say what we say. And I appreciate every contribution from the members of Niger, and I appeal to this August Assembly through the ad hoc committee that I am a member of to continue with the mediation that we were tasked, to ensure that we give a proper report so that everybody can have a clearer picture. When I said that we need to hear from Niger, what I expected was given to us. We needed a member of the delegation to tell us the situation so that we can assess, so that it can be part of the report of this session. If they do not give us a clear picture, maybe it can be blurred or whatever, because they cannot have all the information that they need, because they cannot work, or maybe they are not in contact with the military people. So that also clearly shows that there is an issue. So we need to be sure that we can act on the problems. When we say that Niger has a challenge, what is the challenge? We all know. We never expected the coup d'etat on that 26th day of July, but it happened. Somebody here mentioned that there was an attempted coup in another West African country. We don't want that happening in our countries, because we are all from states that are prone to coup d'etats because of bad leadership. But what can we do? Like Honorable, the distinguished senator said, we have oversight functions on the executive, but if we lean towards the executive because of party affiliation and give sympathy to the point that our rationality is blurred, then that is where the problem comes. And then I will go to Guinea Bissau. I think my question at the beginning was not about the legality or the illegality of the dissolution of the parliament. My concern was the fact that the speaker gave us the information without allowing members to ask questions. And I think that question has been answered by the deputy speaker. But notwithstanding, that wasn't what I meant. My concern was for the matter to be debated, because we cannot allow executives to just dissolve parliaments, whether it is in their constitutions or not. It is a matter for us to question. And then I have another question for Guinea-Bissau concerning their elections. They had an election in June of 2023. And in the report, it is stated that the first extraordinary session was held in November. So I think there is a gap. It also leaves the executive at liberty to do whatever it wants, because it states in the report that the budget of 2023 is being looked at. Meanwhile, they should be looking at the budget for next year. And for Benin, I think they need commendation. If you look at the SDGs, the United Nations SDGs, I'm not sure whether they have a national development plan, but they are in line in fulfilling most of the SDGs, especially when it comes to women, from 7% to 27%. I think alongside Sierra Leone, they also need to be commended. And when it comes to SDG 3, health, when it comes to SDG 4, ensuring inclusive education, I think their report shows that they are in line in fulfilling all that. So that is just a way of commending them. But thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the floor.
Honorable Tunkara.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Honorable Speaker, you would agree with me that the dream of ECOWAS is for us to migrate from ECOWAS of states to ECOWAS of people. The ECOWAS of people is premised on several factors. How are we bringing people closer? How do we make sure that inclusivity factors in our governance? How do we make sure the governed and the governors have that close proximity, have that trust and confidence? Honorable Senator Alan Dumbe said, democracy is for the people. Democracy is a system whereby people entrust you to steer their affairs legitimately. It means that acceptance for you to govern them. If that is the case, coup d'etats cannot be justified. We will sympathize with the condition in Niger, looking at the spillover effect of the coup d'etat, looking at the suffering of the public. But I want to toe the line of Honorable Dr. Haruna Miselia, that the movement of people, the dream of ECOWAS, for the movement of people still be put in place, shouldn't be compromised. Let's allow interactions. Once we interact, the smaller issues will take care of itself. Putting sanction and pressure on the government, that is the military government, is in line in making sure that they come down to the drawing board, open up negotiation, and have a dialogue with the ECOWAS Commission. We are told that they were even reluctant in terms of opening gate for negotiation. And that amounts to the several sanctions that the ECOWAS Commission meted on them. However, I want to add my voice to Dr. Haruna Miselia that the dream of ECOWAS, that is the interaction of good and person, the services, let that flow, and then they monitor the sanctions that are meted on the juntas so that they can relinquish power as soon as possible. Because if you want to open up their reserves, once they have access, they can entice the citizen, try to be very kind to them, now engage in development projects to win their heart and turn into politicians. And that should not be acceptable. Secondly, I think West Africa as a region, we must strengthen our campaign for term limits. Term limit campaigns should really be rigorously undertaken to make sure that every constitution has term limits. At least you will know that the only means of getting to power, the recognized means of getting to power, is through a constitutional mean. And constitutional mean means recognizing the change of government through the ballot box. And secondly also, states need to work in terms of building trust and confidence in the electoral system. Many state citizens have lost hope. You see, we should not look at the coup d'etat, but we need to also examine, to analyze the causality. What are the factors that led to the coup d'etat? Some felt that they've been marginalized, they've been cheated in elections, and they made the country ungovernable. So we need to also factor those kind of things that make sure that we build trust and confidence in the electoral system, just like what happened in Liberia. The trust and confidence in the system of the election was very high, and it was free, fair, and transparent. That was why an incumbent conceded defeat. So the region should take rigorous steps in terms of, restoring trust and confidence. Another factor that we give deaf ears to is the judiciary. Judiciary are very pivotal in terms of any democracy. And the last hope, if the society gets it wrong, the only place we run to is judiciary. And judiciary also should be apolitical and make sure that they are the savior of the society. In some countries, people begin to lack faith in the system of judiciary. So I think these are very key, important things that states should really look at and make sure that we restore confidence in the justice system, restore confidence in the electoral system. and not to encourage coup d'etats. And if you look at the threat of coup d'etat, we've seen a counter coup d'etat, which is very, very new. This doesn't happen in other countries. You will see a junta toppling a government, 3, 4, 6 months down the line again, a counter coup d'etat. When will that country go back to democracy? And that justifies the reason why these sanctions are being harsh on them, because it's becoming very much unbearable. We are negotiating with a junta government to transit, into a democratic government, just to be told the other, coming weeks or so, that government also has been toppled. In Benin, that's the case. There was a counter coup d'etat, a coup d'etat upon a coup d'etat. When are we going back to democracy? Point of correction. In Burkina Faso, rather. I refer, my apologies. In Burkina Faso, this has happened, whereby a leader was ousted out by another military junta. So basically, Honorable Speaker, I think these are the things that we should speak to. These are perennial issues that we should speak to. The issue of constitutional, term limits, and also looking at the electoral system. And thirdly, the judiciary. They are very pivotal in any democratic dispensation. Coming to Bissau, I want to thank them so much for the recently concluded elections. At least you have 12% of women representation. This has never happened in the past. It's a work in progress. Democracy itself is a process. So it's a work in progress. We want to tap on their back that the country is moving in the right direction. But unfortunately, what happened also, one way could be justified, other way could not be justified, because it's all geared toward deterring a coup d'etat of a legitimate government. So on that basis, Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit those kind of some of my reservations, and I thank you so much for giving me the floor.
Respected colleagues, I want you to be conscious of other people who want to contribute. So we should try as much as possible to be concise instead of taking a very lengthy time. Honorable Lopez has the time. Have the 2 minutes. I think it should be okay. Please, let's time ourselves. Please. Honorable Lopez? Not around? Huh?
Muito obrigada, Sr. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I would like to congratulate all who presented reports here, those who presented the reports, and the Honorable Jibo for having given us explanation on the situation in Niger. I would like to speak in my own name, on my own behalf. It is not on behalf of the delegation of my country. I'm speaking as an elected MP, and because, in fact, when we swore the oath, we swore that we'll defend the interest of the countries represented in this parliament. On the situation in Guinea Bissau, we have seen the political instability in Guinea Bissau since 2014. It is not normal for the populations to continue to suffer, and on the basis of political undertakings. So the ECOWAS Parliament and the whole of ECOWAS have the possibility to put an end to those sufferings. I think that it is our responsibility. What is happening in Guinea-Bissau was not reflected in the report that was presented. I think the report was prepared before it took place. And we would like to say that the President has the constitutional power in Article 90 to dissolve Parliament. And because if we refer to Constitution, we should also refer to Article 24 of the same Constitution, which says that Parliament cannot be dissolved before 1 year after the elections. So the powers given to Parliament must be respected, and things should be balanced to avoid a situation in a country which leads to sufferings for the population. I think that there is a constitutional order, and according that constitutional order, a parliament cannot be dissolved before 1 year of having been elected. So I think that about this situation in Guinea Bissau, I think that the parliament does not recognize that decision of principle of the president because of what is enshrined in the constitution. So a country with such economic potential, a country with such potential for development, which are hindered by this political instability. And this is, I think it is necessary for the population, for the people to be brought back to the rule of law. I think that we really deplore that situation, and we have the moral obligation to defend the population of Guinea-Bissau and to defend our, even if we have to defend our constitutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Bankura, you have the floor. I think the Secretary might have to, sorry, please. Honorable Nasiru Bako.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much.
I am one representative, but I can ask a question. Yes, yes, I have the right. No, I have the right to take the floor. I know. Yes, thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I would like to make a general comment and also a recommendation at the end of it, because the ECOWAS region, the ECOWAS territory, is an area for institutional and political instability. With everything that is happening, I have the impression that no country, it seems to me, can be spared anti-constitutional changes. And this is a source of great concern, and this is something that we should share as MPs here. I think that when we talk about democracy, we're talking about shared values and principles. But the shared values, one of those minimal values within our communities, well, I have the impression that the Bureau is not listening to me. May I continue? Thank you. I think that one of the shared values is what we can call inter-community solidarity. We almost have the impression that in our community space, we are in a way of, in a situation whereby when there are terrorist threats, instability threats in a country, red lights are flashed within the community, but we cannot take decisions on time to support states, and we very often intervene after the fact with a whole classical package that is sanctions and nothing but that. And I think that there is a problem there, and Parliament should address that issue and make recommendation to the Assembly, to the Authority of Heads of State. I think that corruption and impunity, we see how those two scourges can be a source of destabilization of state and political instability. What is happening in Guinea-Bissau is corruption, impunity. This is what led to the situation that we are all witnessing, and we need to react to that. We have seen situations of instability, coup attempts in Sierra Leone. I think that Parliament, up till now, does not understand the threats that are looming. And we are sitting back and seeing countries being excluded one after the other. And I think that there will come a time when more than half will be out. And that would mean endangering our own community. That is why I would like to say the following. Here in Parliament, we should make a recommendation to be tabled to the Authority of Heads of State, which is to meet on 10th of December. And countries which are facing difficulties to maintain constitutional order, we should submit a recommendation to say that necessary provisions should be made for anticipated deployment in those countries, if necessary, to help the democratic regimes maintain constitutional order. They should not wait for the regimes to be toppled to intervene. And secondly, may I suggest that for Niger, because when we are talking about ECOWAS of peoples, we are representing the people. And we should also have some empathy. And in the ad hoc committee, which was set up by this very plenary to follow up through mediation the problems in Niger, there is one point that all members had agreed on, which was the removal of sanctions. The removal of sanctions relating to electricity supply in Niger. Now, secondly, also to ask for the removal of sanctions that have an impact on humanitarian aspects, that is foodstuffs and pharmaceuticals. And I believe that here, after the presentations of reports by countries, we should come up with recommendations to be tabled before the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State, which is going to meet soon, to inform that this is what Parliament is calling for. I think that this was done for our committees. We should do it also in plenary so that we can have proper recommendations submitted to heads of state. We are not saying that all sanctions should be removed, should be lifted, but we should agree on a minimum for recommendations to be made on the basis of that minimum. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that it is only in that way that we can also make a contribution. And what is happening in Guinea Bissau, from my own point of view, as a member of parliament from the regional parliament, I think that we should express some concerns and express some regrets as regards the dissolution of parliament in Guinea Bissau. We are not saying that we should condemn them, but we should express our concern and regret, because in fact this may worsen the political and security situation in the country, and the Parliament should take a stand, and we should send a recommendation to the Authority of Heads of State, which is to meet on 10 December. This is why I insisted on taking the floor on those two countries and the general situation in our sub-region.
Thank you very much. I think, I don't know, don't want us to introduce controversy into this matter so that we make good progress. I remember the 4th Deputy Speaker in her contribution after I made a statement that by my understanding, no president have the right to dissolve any. But she made a statement to say that by their constitution, every country has its own constitution. The president has the right. But in the reply of our sister, Lopez, she now said she gave a specific period of time within which the president can now dissolve. These are facts that are being mentioned to us that it's not before us. We do not have any document to support it. So for us to make any statement, if we are to be fair to ourselves, maybe the best we will do is to put up a small committee to look into the facts before we make any statement, so that we don't go against the law and look stupid at the end of the day. That would be my own recommendation to the Parliament, to allow this matter race, put a small committee, look into the matter, and then have the value assessment before any statement could be made. Thank you very much. Sani Boukari.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I thank all colleagues who have spoken and who have given stressed the importance of our population. If I wanted to take the floor, it is just once again to say to this House to how important our community ECOWAS is. And I believe in it very much so for a number of simple reasons that we have been experiencing in less than 40 years. And in particular, our leaders who have had the idea to establish, to create ECOWAS, really thought in depth before doing so, and we would like to commend those leaders and thank them. And in particular, as a national from Niger, it is true that Mr. Djibo spoke about the situation that prevails in Niger, but I would like to congratulate and encourage and support the geographical situation which makes us share 1,600 kilometers of borders with Nigeria. Because as I was saying, in Niger, our constitution makes it possible to the President of the Republic to dissolve the assembly, but provided that he organizes elections 3 months later, 3 months after that, or 3 or 4 months, depending on the situation and the possibilities. 3 months after dissolving the parliament, he must invite the population for new elections. And because of the difficulties, whenever things heat up, we have no fallback position except in Nigeria. And we congratulate them because since this situation occurred, they have raised their voice to say that some of the politicians here are innocent. Some politicians who have settled, who were welcome, and that country has a lot of interest in the situation of Niger under the circumstances, because as the Hausa put it, Megawashi Okojente, when there were elections or whenever there are attempts, coup attempts, just for instance for the Gambians, they have no other way to escape but to go to Senegal. And the Nigerians, on behalf of ECOWAS, we have experienced situations in ECOWAS or in Sierra Leone. They restored constitutional order and supported those countries. So
Bon, pour conclure, bien que je vois que même le micro est contre moi, pour conclure, je voudrais encore...
I'd like to draw the attention of this House on the role of our organization or the importance of organization ECOWAS is not to be undermined or to be overlooked. We need to remain solidified and united. Otherwise, we risk going to oblivion. If we want this space to grow, this is an organization, a body that is the envy of all the other sub-regions. If Morocco and would come and seek membership, and Mauritania too, and then the Central Africa, who are talking of copying what we are doing here, it means that we have really made our mark and that we have our importance, which means that we should not do otherwise other than to thank the Parliament and the Commission. I'd also want for us to bear in mind that we have limits. And when this summit will hold, each one of us will go back to their country. Will you have the courage to go tell your president, this is how we see things, and this is the way to go? And this is the mandate that we have to agree on return to our countries. And like the Nigerian members of parliament did in their reaction to the crisis in Niger, they showed courage in the face of that challenge. And so let's speak on behalf of our people and on behalf of our communities. This is what we wish. It's not just grandstanding, so to say, but we should imbibe the courage to stare the truth in the face and to know that ECOWAS has come to stay. And when you named me to take part in Guinea to represent the parliament during a conference there, at that time I told Guinea, Burkina Faso and Mali that we are 15 and we are going to remain 15, which has been tampered with today. And therefore, it is in our best interest to make sure that this sub-region is supported and ECOWAS should continue to survive. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Dr. Salami and Dr. Lamini thereafter will cap up for us.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and my colleagues. Though I was not here when the Niger made their presentation, but from what I heard and what I have in mind, Honorable Speaker, and what you have just said, that we should have a committee that will look into this matter and come up with the recommendation or a report that we will consider, will receive, deliberate, and have a common stand on it. Though, Mr. Speaker, this issue, as you said, is good. If we setting up a committee to look into it, is good. But we should also consider time. This committee should be given a time within which it can work, submit its report, the House to consider the report, and have a common stand that we will stand on, as you said. Because it's good, as it happened in the National Assembly, Nigerian National Assembly, the senators, they have their own stand and they have make an appeal. To make an appeal is different because everybody has his own right. Anybody can do what he can do. It's not necessary that the head of state should accept what we recommended, but it's good to make our position known that this is what we want and what we are feeling. Not necessarily because we cannot force the head of states, but when they are taking their own decision, they know the parliament is here, but they do not wait for the parliament or listen to the parliament before they take action, before they put this sanction. So being members representing our communities, and we swear here that we are going to do the positive, always to represent our people. Our people, we have seen the situation they are in now. They are seriously suffering, both Nigeria, Niger, and other countries. So it's good as a representative of the people to make our own recommendation. Since we cannot give directives, let us make a recommendation to show them our stand, to appeal to them, because them themselves, the head of state, they are representing us, and we are representing the community. So it's good, Honorable Speaker, for this House to have a common stand, at least to make a recommendation to the head of state that police, we are representing peoples. We have seen the suffer, the situation in our borders. Please let the head of state, as they put down these sanctions, let them remove some of the essential, some of the sanctions that directly affect negatively to the people of Nigeria, Niger, and other ECOWAS countries. At least to lift the movement, free movement of people and goods. Because the people and goods, the restricted movement of people and goods can never and will never contribute anything towards returning the democracy in the country. And also giving them light, restore the electricity.
I think I may have to stop you.
So, okay, so in conclusion, Your Excellency, may we please agree to have a recommendation. Just send a recommendation. We have made our position known. It is up to them either to accept or to reject. But at least we here, we know, and the world know that this is our position and this is what we want for them to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Maybe just to draw your attention, the committee that was seeking the parliament to agree to do has nothing to do with Niger. But to make a statement on the happening in Guinea Bissau is what we said we have to put a committee. The proposal before the parliament is that there should be one recommendation, that recommendation is to lift up sanctions that affects the common man. And nobody have gone against it. And that's why it's always good. When you are not there, the basis when you come, you just follow. It's much better. But that every recommendation that has to do with the military junta should be sustained. And I think that is okay, because we want democracy restored. Thank you. Lastly, Honorable Emerson Lamini.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, I want to ask this sensitive question on how comes overnight we saw the death of COVID-19. It came as a result of the resolute decision members of the community took to fight COVID. And at the end of the day, COVID was no more. So, also, it can be applied to coups, and counter-coups within the community. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it is very clear countries that are now affected with this coup, with specific reference to Niger, we have heard about negotiation, we have heard about dialogue, we have heard arbitration. All of these things have failed. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, heads of state decided to put sanction, which is there now. And when all else failed, Mr. Speaker, the ultimates, definitely we all expect the ultimates. It is the military, most times we end on to. I feel a pain initially stated by our sister from Gambia, Madam Jai. I actually felt an expression of pessimism that after 72 hours, where coup will be staged, it can be very difficult. But I also want to bring to our attention that in Sierra Leone in 1997, it took about 9 months. The military seized power in Sierra Leone. Within 9 months, after they were wooed, they were lulled, they were persuaded to leave power, which they refused. Blessed President Sani Abacha of Nigeria, at the end of the day, removed them. How did he? The cooperation from the civilians, the citizens, helped a lot. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that the heads of states and governments, they have taken decision. Yes, of course. And Parliament has to be very sensitive and technical. We can still negotiate with them instead of taking parliamentary angle, as somebody stated earlier on. Let us take parliamentary angle to remove sanctions. We can still negotiate with the heads of state and government. If a sanction will be limited to the people that have staged the coup from Niger, not to go out, and sanction to be still imposed on ammunition and arms, not to go in or out. Mr. Speaker, it will go a long way for us to see a positive result with that. It happened in Sierra Leone. Sanction was levied, and that sanction helped us a lot. The people that staged the coup, they will not go out of Sierra Leone, and they will have to seek one day. They might want to seek medical attention. At the end of the day, they were also not allowed to import ammunition. And that was how Sierra Leone got the reversal of coup and constitutional regime was restored. So we can explore that particular one, Mr. Speaker. And secondly, I want to commend Benin for the high percentage in the gender representation, female representation. I'm a male champion in my country, and I'm always passionate about women representation in position of trust, because my conviction is that when women are in decision-making offices, corruption is minimized. When women are in decision-making offices, Mr. Speaker, they are more careful about welfareism and children's affairs rather than war. So because of that, I commend Benin Republic, and the secret that I saw, how they arrived in that particular stage, was laws, regulations they made. And I encourage other countries within the community to make positive regulations, legislative framework that will give women a platform. Sierra Leone did it. We made positive legal framework that has now given our women a platform. At least we can count 30% of female representation in our parliament. Mr. Speaker, again, I thank you for this opportunity, and permit me to once again end with a quotation of Martin Nimula. I did say Martin Nimula was a Pentecostal pastor from Lutheran in Germany, and he was a fervent opposition leader against the Nazi state in Germany. He did say in one of his popular write-up that first they came to the Jew. I did not speak up because I'm not a Jew. And they came to the communists. I did not speak up because I'm not a communist.
You manage our time for us.
Mr. Speaker,
you have given us that quotation.
ECOWAS has a role to play in this particular hand. If one country is affected today and we hold our peace, I'm afraid we will not be affected. But let ECOWAS still impose a sanction, and that sanction will give birth to constitutional regime in those countries that are affected. I thank you very much.
Well, Honorable Lamini, I think it's a balance between the community and those in power. The community, whatever form of governance you are giving in, is to protect their life, increase their wealth, and give development. It is not for the community to suffer, the innocent ones. You know that 99% of them don't know way to the government house. And that's why in the recommendation it says that everything that will make the junta and his own regime to quit the space, those sanctions should be sustained. But the one that have direct effect on the population and the community, which is what ECOWAS is all about, should be lifted. And I think there's nothing bad in that. If we are going to be true parliamentarians, Abacha was a military junta. Nigerians will tell you better their experiences on that regime as to whether he was appreciated. Yes, he has done extremely well in that aspect, but when it comes to other aspect, the annulment by Babangida of Abiola's regime was the one that made him to benefit and do the thing he did. But then we do not, and I do not appreciate any person, any military person in uniform in any form of government. I'm a Democrat. Without democracy, we can't be here. And that's why we're asking for complete democratization of our own region. May God help us. Thank you very much. Dr. Muhammad Bankura, you have insisted. We still allow you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, let me commend the presenters.
this morning. Let me go to Niger. I, for one, Mr. Speaker, I am not in support of any sanction to be lifted against Niger. I say so because I know for sure a coup can only become a real coup or succeed when it has the support of the people. And I know these sanctions are in place as a deterrent to the military junta. So if our heads of states are coming here to talk on Niger, I am saying, I am speaking from a position of an opposition MP that if it cost me to lobby my own head of state, the president, in order not to lift the sanctions, I will do so. I will do so.
You are alone.
Let me talk on Benin. I will want to commend Benin because they came a long way in order to give rights to women from 8% to 27%. It's a long way. And that is an effort that we all have to be proud of. And we are calling on other countries like Nigeria to follow suit, to empower women to take elective positions. I will want to ask for clarity. Benin, in your presentation, you did mention that sanctions were imposed on teachers who commit the act of harassment. I would want to know, what are those sanctions? What are those sanctions? In a nutshell, Benin, it's an example for us all to follow. What you have done in the area of health is commendable. In the future, I would like other countries, like my sister country, Nigeria, and other countries, to follow suit so that we can empower women, the girl child, to make this country or to make this world a better world for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The presenter have the floor now to respond to the questions given to them. Starting from Guinea. If you have any. In the absence, go to Benin.
Muito obrigado, Senhor Presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm speaking on behalf of the Guinea Bissau delegation. As you all would understand, I'm not speaking on behalf in my individual capacity, but on the capacity of my delegation. I'm going to respond to some of the things that have been said. The political context right now is unsettled in Guinea-Bissau. We are wondering if the dissolution of the parliament is illegal or not, and this is generating heated debate. But I dare say that the ECOWAS agencies have met, the Council for Mediation and Security, and they are going to draft a meeting to the Council of Ministers, which will hold tomorrow or day after, latest on Sunday. We will we'll have the summit of the heads of states and government. Certainly, some measures will be taken on the situation in my country, on the prevailing situation in Guinea Bissau. It was not mentioned in the report because the dissolution took part after the report had already been finalized and even translated before that incident occurred. For us, it is important that every one of us understands that our constitution, the constitution of Guinea-Bissau, when you talk about the dissolution of the People's National Assembly, it is the suspension of plenary that it entails. Is not the whole National Assembly. So we have the Constitution in Article 94, Paragraph 2, and I quote, with the dissolution of the Parliament, or the People's National Assembly, the parliamentarians shall retain their mandate until the election of the next, the coming legislature. The People's National Assembly, whenever it is dissolved, the parliamentarians will still hold on to their mandate until the next legislature is elected. So with the dissolution of the National Assembly, the standing committees will continue to run. And these standing committees will the standing committees will continue to sit on matters of national interest. The other organs, the internal organs of the People's National Assembly, as defined in text, namely the Bureau, the Conference of Leaders, the standing committees, and the management shall continue to operate until new elected members of the next legislature are elected. So in the case of Guinea-Bissau, we have our constitution and our laws extant. So the dissolution affects only the plenary. So that is what this is all about. And this situation occurred during the previous legislation, and for 1 year or thereabout, the Parliament did not sit in plenary, but other organs continued to work. This is to make sure that the Parliament does not go comatose, and so the Constitution provides for these measures. Whenever the Parliament is dissolved, there is a moratorium of 90 days within which elections would be conducted. With respect to this situation, there are strong political agitations, but within the ECOWAS as a body, we hope that decisions will be taken at which we will have the opportunity to have our say. Now, there is an issue. Imagine we are in December and our session normally starts in November. In our text, we have 4 ordinary sessions. The first ordinary sessions, whichever legislature, the first ordinary session starts in November. The second starts in February, the third in May, and the fourth in June. And this is what the Constitution, this is what is enshrined in the Constitution. And so on the 4th June, after 27 July, after swearing in, we had to wait till November for the first ordinary session, and between the swearing in July and till date, we have had 1 ordinary session that has considered the 2023 budget. Why the 2023 budget? Because at the time of the dissolution of the National Assembly, up till the conduct of the elections in July 2023, the plenary did not meet to approve the 2023 budget. And so the budget approval was postponed to early 2024.
Penalty or otherwise. If you clear with us, that's all. The remaining is for your own internal workings. It's not for us. We do not want to make a statement because of the constitutional arrangement of our country. So your clearance, I think, is okay. It is in order what has happened. That's what exactly you have given us. Do we assume so? That it is in order to dissolve. The president has the right to do that. He has operated within the constitution. So we can't cry more than the brief. Thank you. So I will give the floor to Benin to respond to their own issues. Race.
So, President, you know.
Honorable Speaker, sorry. Honorable Speaker, I was answering, in fact, questions that were raised from the floor. In fact, questions raised from the floor.
That's not the question that was given to you. The issue is...
No, but so, President, it's cool.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that this is a matter that is creating some agitation on the Guinea Bissau Guinean scene. It is a matter that is being discussed. So this is...
Of you that are seated there are Guineans. You are the one to reconcile yourself to tell us exactly, so that we are guided by the principle and the constitutional provision as enshrined or contained. You are the one to guide us. We cannot go into your politics. That's not correct. Madam said, the fourth deputy speaker said, he acted within the constitution. Lopez said, no, he acted outside the constitution. Now you are also confirming that the president has a right. So, are we to go to the details? It's not for us as a parliament. if we must be fair, if you will be fair to us. Yes, Madam Lopez. Yes. Yes, ma.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I think that my colleague, in fact, was clarifying the misunderstanding and the fact that people didn't understand what happens. And in the second question is, he was answering the question raised by Mrs. Fatimata, Honorable MP Fatimata, on why the 2023 budget was being approved and not the 2024 budget. And this is what my colleague was trying to explain. Because we have a program with IMF, and as he said, the budget was adopted in 2022, and it is only in ordinary sessions that we could approve 2023 budget. And for the sake of the IMF, we have to approve the 2024 budget to have credit in 2024. And this is what we are talking about. So we approved the 2023 budget, and in this ordinary session, we are going to continue the work that we were doing to approve the 2024 budget. And I think that this is, in fact, what my colleague was trying to explain. He was explaining that for 2024, the budget has not yet been approved. This is what he was explaining.
Thank you very much. I think Fatimata went out of her own way. Approving budget is the work of country parliament. We cannot come here be questioning. You know, even if it's in the report, we should limit ourselves to our own work. There we have limitations. Thank you. Benin.
Merci.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I don't think that there were many questions on Benin. There is only one point that I will react to, and that was, in fact, a point on sanctions. The sanctions against teachers who were found guilty of harassment or practices that were not really acceptable. In fact, there have been indeed a few arrests and trials and sentences, prison sentences, ranging between 5 to 10 years for some cases. And there have also been some cases of violence against women, and for that there have also been arrests, detention, and some trials are in fact ongoing. Now, for early marriages, the law provides that whenever a person underage is married, which is contrary to the law, that leads immediately to the arrest of the father and mother and boyfriend of the girl, and of the, if it is a Muslim, the imam who celebrated the wedding. So all those people, in fact, are arrested, are put under arrest and sent to jail, and with the same sentence when in case of trials. This is how it works. I don't have the statistics on sentences that I could provide to illustrate the point further. So in future, we will look for the statistics. This is what I have to say on the concerns raised by Honorable Bangura. The rest were just commendations, and I thank those who took the floor to congratulate Benin.
Much. We'll now yield the floor to Honorable from Niger, if there's any response for him. No, you may sit where you are.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to thank all those who have were in fact sensitive to what we said, and even came up with proposals. From what I've heard proposals from people asking that sanctions be lifted, be removed, and that others saying that sanctions should be applied to those who, in fact, are the offenders, so that as to relieve the sufferings of the populations. So aside from that, really, there was a concern and an accusation against the military, saying that they do not want at all, or that they have broken rules. Well, this, in fact, the first person who raised it was Ndome, who asked that whatever the prerequisites for the time being regarding the situation. So Tunkara also expressed some concerns, and he said that it seems that they don't want to discuss. Someone else said that the negotiations are stalled. I want to be very clear about that. When we had the coup, that was on 26th of July. On the 30th, that is 4 or 5 days after that, there was the conference of the Authority of Heads of State, and decisions were made without there being, because normally, in fact, what happens is that a mediator is appointed to start doing the groundwork. But in the case of Niger, 4 or 5 days after the coup, sanctions were taken immediately. And there was no deadline offered to militaries to leave power. And because of that, when that happened, there was some mediation, the goodwill of Nigeria, the ulemas from Nigeria, in particular the former president of Nigeria, President Salami, and others went to Niger to try and find out what was happening. You know that now in Niger, presently in Niger, on the way to the airport, there is a roundabout which was baptized the roundabout of resistance. The whole population met on that spot over a period of 2 or even 3 months. Whether it was raining or not, whatever the weather was like, they would go there. And that is why the army, the French people and all that could not even have water, bread or whatever. Everything was at a standstill. So when the delegation of Nigeria arrived, they could not go all the way to the city. They could not reach the city, and that was interpreted as being a refusal to welcome them. But the situation was sorted out later, because the same delegation came back to Niger, was welcomed, and even went to visit President Bazoum at his home. But since then, there have not been any negotiations. The military themselves are trying, because I'm sorry, I am trying to find the right words. I want to say military. I don't want to talk about junta. That is why I was trying to look for the right word. And they could not restore contacts with ECOWAS. They have not been able to do that, and this is what is happening. It is not that the militaries are reluctant to there being negotiations. All to the contrary. They are even trying informally, but they are not succeeding. And whenever they try to contact an authority, they say, well, I am traveling, when I come back, etc., do this, do that. And this is the situation that we find ourselves in as of today. Now, that was to answer questions raised by 3 members, and the concern regarding the concern as to whether the negotiations have been stalled and where we are as it is. So much, Mr. Chair, Ms. Honorable Speaker, for the answer that I was to give to the questions raised. Thank you.
So, colleagues, I think the list now is for us now to adopt the report. Adopted? Thank you. Respected colleagues, The item on the agenda on the plenary session are exhausted. In accordance with the work program of this ordinary session, our plenary sitting will continue Thursday, 7th December 2023 from 10 a.m. The agenda will include an interactive session with the following partners: International Organization for Migration, IOM, Friends of Art. Sitting is hereby adjourned.